A nurse found a 7-year-old boy sleeping in the hospital waiting room for 3 nights. When she asked about his parents, the photos on his phone made her call 911 immediately. The fluorescent lights of Mercy General Hospital's emergency department hummed with their characteristic sterile glow, casting harsh shadows across the vinyl chairs of the waiting room. Outside, Boston shivered under the grip of an early November cold snap, wind whistling through the narrow streets and sending fallen leaves skittering across the pavement. Inside, the usual cacophony of a busy urban hospital, beeping monitors, squeaking rubber saws, and the occasional overhead page, had settled into the quieter rhythm of the 2 a.m. lull. Kayla Lawson paused at the nurse's station to massage the back of her neck, feeling the familiar tension that came 8 hours into a 12-hour night shift. At 32, she'd been working these hours long enough that her body had adapted to the nocturnal schedule, but that didn't make the physical toll any less real. Her dark hair was pulled back into a practical ponytail, and the lines around her hazel eyes had deepened over the years of witnessing both life's beginnings and its endings within these walls. 2 more gunshots coming in from Dorchester, announced Miguel, the charge nurse, glancing up from his computer. ETA 10 minutes. Kayla nodded, already mentally preparing for the inevitable chaos. I'll prep trauma too. She grabbed her lukewarm coffee, her 3rd of the night, and took a long sip, grimacing at the bitter taste. As she rounded the corner into the main waiting area to retrieve some supplies from the storage room, something caught her eye. In the far corner of the room, partially hidden behind a large potted plant, was a small figure curled up on 3 connected chairs. A child, no more than 7 or 8 years old, fast asleep with a faded blue backpack serving as a makeshift pillow. He wore a navy jacket that seemed a size too large, jeans with a small tear at one knee, and scuffed sneakers that had seen better days. His face, peaceful in sleep, was framed by unkempt brown hair that fell across his forehead. Kayla frowned. There was something familiar about the boy. She approached quietly, carefully adjusting the thin hospital blanket someone had draped over him. As she did, recognition dawned. This was the same child she'd noticed during her shifts on Monday and Tuesday nights, always alone in the same corner, always with that same blue backpack. "Hey, Miguel," she called softly, walking back to the nurse's station. "That kid in the corner. Has anyone checked on him?" Miguel glanced up from the computer, brow furrowed. "Which kid?" "The little boy sleeping on the chairs by the plant. Brown hair, blue jacket. I'm pretty sure he was here the last 2 nights too." "Oh, him. Yeah, he says his mom is upstairs getting some tests. Security checked on him yesterday. Said he was fine, just waiting." Miguel shrugged. Figured maybe his mom's admitted or something. Kayla's frown deepened. For 3 nights in a row? That doesn't sound right. Maybe different family members taking turns? I don't know, Kayla. We've been slammed. Miguel's attention was already back on the incoming trauma cases. "Can you check the supply of trauma gowns? We're running low in room 1. She nodded absently, her focus still on the sleeping child. Something about the situation tugged at her instincts, the same instincts that had saved countless patients during her 9 years as an ER nurse. Children didn't typically spend 3 consecutive nights sleeping in waiting rooms, not without good reason. Before she could investigate further, the electronic doors slid open, bringing a blast of cold air and the paramedics with their first gunshot victim of the night. The waiting room child would have to wait a little longer. For hours later, as the first hint of dawn began to lighten the sky outside the hospital windows, Kayla finally had a moment to breathe. The gunshot victims were stabilized. One headed to surgery, one admitted to the ICU, and the usual parade of midnight emergencies had momentarily subsided. She made her way back to the waiting room, a small cup of apple juice and a packaged breakfast muffin in hand. The boy was awake now, sitting upright with his backpack clutched protectively on his lap. In the harsh morning light, Kayla could see the dark circles under his eyes and the slight hollowness to his cheeks. He was thin, too thin, and there was a wariness in his posture that seemed incongruous with his young age. "Hey there," she said, approaching with a gentle smile. "I brought you some breakfast." The boy's eyes, a deep brown that seemed to hold more than a child's share of understanding, darted to her face, then to her ID badge, then to the offered food. He didn't reach for it. "I'm not supposed to take things from strangers," he said. His voice quiet but surprisingly articulate for a child his age. Kayla nodded, placing the juice and muffin on the chair beside him. "That's very smart. I'm Kayla. I'm one of the nurses here." She pointed to her badge. "See? So now I'm not a stranger anymore." A flicker of a smile crossed his face before disappearing behind the careful mask. "I'm Ben," he offered after a moment. "Nice to meet you, Ben." Kayla sat down in the chair opposite him, keeping a respectful distance. "I noticed you've been here for a few nights. Is everything okay?" Ben's small fingers tightened around the straps of his backpack. "My mom's upstairs," he said, the words coming out with practiced ease. "She's getting better. The doctors are helping her." "Which department is she in?" "Maybe I know her doctors." The slightest hesitation. The cancer department." "Oncology." Ben nodded quickly. "Yeah, that one." "And who's staying with you at night? Is your dad around?" Kayla kept her tone conversational, non-threatening. "He's away working," Ben replied, his gaze dropping to his lap. "But it's okay. I'm 7, almost 8. I can take care of myself." 7 years old and spending nights alone in a hospital waiting room. Kayla felt something twist in her chest. A mixture of concern and the maternal protectiveness that had only grown stronger since having her daughter Lily. "That's very grown-up of you," she said carefully. "But even grown-ups need help sometimes. I have a daughter who's 10, and she still needs me around." At the mention of another child, Ben's expression softened slightly. "What's her name?" "Lily. She likes soccer and hates broccoli." This earned another brief smile from Ben. "What about you? What do you like?" "Ben. Dinosaurs," he answered, a genuine spark of childlike enthusiasm briefly lighting up his face. "And space. I know all the planets and their moons." "That's impressive," Kayla said, meaning it. "So you're staying here until your mom gets better? Has anyone from the hospital been helping you?" The wariness returned to Ben's expression. "A guard asked me some questions yesterday. I told him my mom said to wait here." He straightened up, as if trying to appear more confident. "I'm fine, really. I have my books and my phone for games. And I can use the bathroom here, and there's water fountains." The casual mention of basic necessities as though they were luxuries made Kayla's concern deepen. "Have you been eating regular meals, Ben?" Ben nodded, but the slight hesitation told her otherwise. "The cafeteria lady gave me some food yesterday." Kayla glanced at the untouched muffin and juice. "You should eat that before it gets stale. Hospital food isn't great, but it's better than nothing." After a moment's consideration, Ben reached for the juice, carefully peeling back the foil top. He took a small sip, then a more eager one, clearly thirstier than he'd let on. "Ben," Kayla said gently, "I'd really like to check on your mom. Make sure she's getting everything she needs. Could you tell me her name?" His shoulders tensed. "Diane," he said after a pause. "Diane Reynolds." "Reynolds, just like you?" Kayla smiled, trying to keep the mood light despite her growing concern. "And what room is she in? I could pop up and say hello." Ben stared at his juice cup. I don't remember the number." His knuckles whitened around the cup. "It's upstairs. The cancer floor." Kayla had spent enough time around frightened children to recognize the signs of a child trying to protect himself, or someone else. "Ben, I want to help you. And I think you might need some help right now. It's okay to tell me what's really going on." The boy's eyes darted to the main doors, as if calculating the distance for escape. Kayla knew she was losing him. "You know," she said, changing tactics, "I bet your mom would love to see you. How about we go up together and visit her?" Ben's breath caught. For a moment, Kayla saw raw fear in his eyes before he masked it. "She's sleeping. The doctors said not to bother her. Even sleeping people like knowing their loved ones are near," Kayla countered gently. "I could just check on her while you wait outside if you're worried about waking her." "No!" The word came out sharper than Ben had likely intended, and he immediately drew back. "I mean, She needs to rest. That's what the doctor said. Kayla nodded slowly, making a split-second decision. She reached into her scrubs pocket and pulled out her phone. Ben, can I see your phone for a second? I want to put my number in it, so you can call me if you need anything. After a moment's hesitation, Ben reached into his backpack and pulled out an old model smartphone with a cracked screen protector. It's just for emergencies, he explained as he handed it over. Mom lets me have it so I can call her. That's smart, Kayla said, taking the device. As soon as it was in her hand, she knew what she had to do. It wasn't strictly ethical, but her instincts were screaming that this child was in trouble. Do you mind if I check if your mom's number is working? Sometimes hospital rooms have bad reception. Before Ben could protest, Kayla had opened the phone's photo gallery, and what she saw made her blood run cold. The first image showed a small, cluttered apartment with clothes strewn across the floor, empty liquor bottles on a coffee table, and what looked disturbingly like drug paraphernalia partially visible on a side table. The next photo showed a thin woman with lank blonde hair sprawled unconscious on a stained couch, her arm bearing the telltale marks of repeated injections, and a visible bruise darkening her cheekbone. Kayla swiped through more images with mounting horror, a child's careful documentation of neglect. There was a hand-drawn calendar with days crossed off, photos of simple meals Ben had apparently prepared for himself, and selfies he'd taken to send to his mother showing he was being good while she was sleeping. When Kayla looked up from the phone, she found Ben watching her with resignation beyond his years. She's not really upstairs, is she? Kayla asked softly. Ben's lower lip trembled, but he didn't cry. She's just sick, he whispered. She's going to get better. She always does. How long has she been sleeping like this, Ben? He shrugged one small shoulder. Since last Thursday, but I've been taking care of things. I go to school and everything. I make my lunch. I'm good at being quiet when she's resting. 13 days. This child had been essentially caring for himself for nearly 2 weeks. Where is your apartment, Ben? Kayla kept her voice steady, despite the rage and sorrow building inside her. On Westland Avenue, he answered, his defenses crumbling. Near the big CVS. But please don't tell anyone. If they know I'm alone, they'll take me away. I don't want to go away. I want to stay with my mom. She needs me. Kayla felt a lump form in her throat, the fierce protectiveness in his voice. A child determined to care for his parent rather than the other way around was both heartbreaking and infuriating. Ben, she said, choosing her words carefully, I think your mom needs help right now, the kind of help doctors can give her. And you need someone to take care of you while she gets that help. No! Panic flashed across Ben's face. No, please. They'll put me in foster care. Tommy from my class was in foster care and he said it was terrible. Please, I'll go home right now. I'll be fine. Mom will wake up soon. Kayla reached out, gently placing her hand on Ben's arm. Ben, look at me. If your mom is sleeping like in those photos, she might be very sick. She might need emergency medical help. The boy's eyes filled with tears, but still none fell. You're going to call the police, he said, his voice small. I'm going to call for help, Kayla corrected gently. For both of you. In that moment, Ben looked exactly what he was. A frightened 7-year-old boy who had been carrying an impossible burden alone for far too long. His shoulders slumped, and the backpack slid to the floor as the fight went out of him. Can you? He started, then paused, swallowing hard. Can you come with me? When they check on her. I don't want to go by myself. The request broke something in Kayla's heart. She squeezed his small hand. I won't leave you alone, Ben. I promise. As Ben finally allowed himself to lean against her side, exhaustion overtaking his small frame, Kayla pulled out her phone with her free hand and dialed 911. Looking down at the top of his head, at the too thin shoulders carrying too much weight, she made a silent vow that this child would not fall through the cracks. Not on her watch. This is Kayla Lawson, a nurse at Mercy General, she said when the dispatcher answered. I need to report a child in danger and a possible overdose victim. Outside, the Boston morning was breaking clear and cold, the sun climbing over the city skyline, indifferent to the small lives being broken and perhaps, just perhaps, beginning to be mended within the hospital walls. The ambulance's siren wailed through the Boston morning, cutting through the early rush hour traffic with urgent authority. Inside, Kayla sat beside Ben, her hand resting protectively on his small shoulder as the EMTs exchanged terse updates over the radio. The boy hadn't spoken since they'd left the hospital, his brown eyes fixed on his scuffed sneakers, his blue backpack clutched against his chest like armor. "We're 4 minutes out," the driver called back. "Police are already on scene." Kayla felt Ben tense beneath her touch. "It's going to be okay," she said softly, though she had no right to make such promises. In 9 years of emergency nursing, she'd seen too many cases like this end in heartbreak. The opioid crisis had carved its way through Boston's neighborhoods with ruthless efficiency, leaving shattered families in its wake. What if she's dead? Ben's question came so quietly that Kayla almost missed it beneath the siren's wail. The words held no childish drama, only a terrible, matter-of-fact acceptance that made them all the more devastating. "The police would have told us if..." Kayla began, then stopped herself. This child had been forced to grow up too quickly. He deserved honesty, not hollow reassurances. "I don't know, Ben, but if she's been taking pictures and moving around recently, that's a good sign." Ben nodded, his fingers working anxiously at a frayed thread on his backpack. "She breathed when I checked yesterday morning. I put a mirror by her nose like they do in movies." A flash of pride crossed his face. "I've been making sure she drinks water. I squeeze it into her mouth with a turkey baster, really careful so she doesn't choke." The simple statement hit Kayla like a physical blow. She pictured this small boy, methodically caring for his unconscious mother with makeshift medical techniques gleaned from television, alone in an apartment with no one to turn to. She swallowed hard against the surge of anger, not at Ben's mother, though certainly there was cause, but at the countless systems that had failed this child long before today. "That was very smart, Ben," she managed, her voice thick. "You've been incredibly brave." He shrugged, the gesture heartbreakingly adult. "Mom gets like this sometimes. Not usually this long, though." He hesitated, then added in a whisper, "I think it's because Dad went away. She said she couldn't handle things without him." Before Kayla could respond, the ambulance lurched to a stop. Through the windows, she could see they'd arrived at a weathered brick apartment building on Westland Avenue. 2 police cruisers were parked haphazardly out front, lights flashing, and a small cluster of curious neighbors had gathered on the sidewalk. Ben's hand shot out, grabbing Kayla's wrist with surprising strength. "You promised you wouldn't leave me," he said, panic edging into his voice. "I won't," she assured him, ignoring the voice of professional caution that warned against getting too involved. This wasn't just another case. She couldn't explain why, but something about Ben had bypassed all her carefully constructed boundaries. Perhaps it was the echo of her own childhood she saw in his guarded eyes, or simply the raw courage he displayed in his desperate attempt to keep his small world from falling apart. As they exited the ambulance, a uniformed officer approached. "You the nurse who called this in?" he asked Kayla, his gaze flicking to Ben with practiced assessment. "Yes, Kayla Lawson from Mercy General." She kept her arm around Ben's shoulders, feeling him press closer against her side as the officer loomed over them. "Officer Daniels, we've secured the scene. Paramedics are with the mother now." The officer's face remained professional, but a muscle in his jaw tightened. "It's not great in there. I wouldn't recommend bringing the kid back up." "I want to see my mom," Ben said, his voice stronger than Kayla had expected. Officer Daniels exchanged a glance with Kayla, communicating a clear message. "Not a good idea." "Ben," Kayla said gently, crouching to his level, "how about we wait until the doctors have had a chance to help your mom? Then we can see her at the hospital." "Is she breathing?" Ben asked the officer directly, with the directness only children can muster in moments of crisis. Officer Daniels hesitated, then nodded. "She is. She's alive, but very sick." Some of the tension left Ben's small frame. "Can I get some things from our apartment? I need my dinosaur book and Mom's medication list." I wrote everything down in my notebook. The exchange of glances between Kayla and Officer Daniels this time held a different message. Shock at the level of responsibility this child had assumed. I'll take him up to get a few things, Kayla offered. I'm used to medical situations. I'll come with you, Daniels said. It wasn't a suggestion. Nothing in the photos on Ben's phone had prepared Kayla for the reality of the Reynolds apartment. The smell hit her first. A sour mixture of unwashed bodies, spoiled food, and the acrid tang of cigarette smoke that clung to the walls and furniture. The one-bedroom unit was small, made smaller by the chaotic accumulation of clothes, takeout containers, and various household items scattered across every surface. A paramedic team was working in the living room, where Diane Reynolds lay on a tattered couch. From Kayla's vantage point in the doorway, she could see an oxygen mask over the woman's face and an IV line already established in her arm. Diane's skin had the waxy pallor characteristic of long-term drug users, her cheekbones sharp beneath too tight skin, her body impossibly thin beneath the blanket the medics had placed over her. Narcotic overdose, one of the paramedics informed them, voice low. Probably heroin, possibly laced with fentanyl. She's been under for a while. We've administered Narcan, but she's only partially responsive. Severely dehydrated, malnourished. BP's dangerously low. Kayla felt Ben straining to see past her into the living room. She turned, blocking his view of his mother's limp form. Let's get your things, Ben. Where's your room? He pointed to a door off the narrow hallway, and Kayla guided him toward it, grateful to move away from the scene in the living room. Unlike the rest of the apartment, Ben's bedroom showed signs of careful maintenance. The twin bed was neatly made with a faded space-themed comforter. A bookshelf held rows of well-loved paperbacks, and a small desk in the corner was organized with school supplies and a stack of completed homework. I need my science book, Ben said, moving to his backpack. And my notebook. He retrieved a spiral-bound notebook from his desk drawer, the cover decorated with carefully drawn planets and stars. This has all Mom's medicines in it, and the phone numbers for her doctors. Kayla watched as Ben methodically packed a small duffel bag with clothes, books, and a worn stuffed triceratops that he tucked in with particular care. The contrast between the chaos outside this room and the ordered sanctuary Ben had created for himself spoke volumes about the child's desperate attempt to maintain normalcy in the most abnormal of circumstances. Ben, she asked gently, is there someone we can call? Maybe your grandparents? Or an aunt or uncle? He shook his head. Grandma and Grandpa don't talk to Mom anymore. They live in Florida now. Mom says they abandoned us. He zipped up the duffel bag. Dad's mom died before I was born. What about your father? You mentioned he's away working? Ben's shoulders stiffened. He's in jail, he said flatly, for selling drugs. Mom says he'll be home in 2 more years. The matter-of-fact way Ben delivered this information, as though having a father in prison and a mother with addiction issues were simply normal facts of childhood, made Kayla's chest ache. She wanted to gather this solemn little boy into her arms and shield him from the harsh realities he'd been navigating alone. But she knew such gestures wouldn't erase the damage already done. Is there a teacher or a neighbor who helps you sometimes? She pressed. Ben hesitated. Mrs. Porter next door gives me cookies sometimes. And my teacher, Ms. Winters, she lets me stay in the classroom during lunch when the cafeteria gets too loud. He looked down. But nobody knows about Mom. I'm good at keeping secrets. If people found out, they'd take me away. Before Kayla could respond, Officer Daniels appeared in the doorway. Paramedics are ready to transport. There's a social worker on the way to meet us at Mercy General. His eyes swept over the neat bedroom, then back to Ben with a new understanding. You ready to go, buddy? Ben nodded, slinging his backpack over one shoulder and gripping the duffel bag with both hands. At the doorway, he paused, looking back at his room with a gaze far too knowing for a 7-year-old. It was the look of someone who understood they might not be returning. Kayla placed a gentle hand on his back. Let's go see your mom. The emergency department at Mercy General was at its mid-morning peak when they arrived, but Dr. Aaron Chun, the attending physician Kayla had alerted earlier, was waiting for them. Diane Reynolds had been wheeled directly into a treatment bay, curtains drawn for privacy as medical staff worked to stabilize her. Significant respiratory depression, signs of prolonged unconsciousness. Dr. Chun briefed Kayla quietly as Ben sat in a nearby chair, supervised by a nursing assistant. We're looking at organ damage, possible pneumonia from aspiration. Tox screen shows heroin, fentanyl, and benzodiazepines. It's a miracle she's alive. Kayla? The small voice drew their attention. Ben had approached silently, his backpack still clutched against his chest. When can I see my mom? Dr. Chun crouched down to Ben's level, his face softening. Hi there. I'm Dr. Chun. Your mom is very sick right now, and we need to do some tests to figure out how to help her. It might be a little while before you can see her. Is she going to die? The question came with the same direct, pragmatic tone Ben had used with the police officer. We're doing everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen, Dr. Chun replied, honest without being brutal. Ben absorbed this, then asked, did I do something wrong? By not calling for help sooner. The question hung in the air, devastating in its implication. Kayla felt her eyes burn with unshed tears. No, Dr. Chun said firmly. You did nothing wrong. In fact, from what I've heard, you did everything right. The water you gave her probably kept her alive. You're a very brave young man. Ben didn't look convinced. Then why didn't Mom wake up? I tried everything. I played her favorite songs really loud. I made her coffee and put it by her nose because she always says she can't wake up without coffee. His voice cracked slightly. I even cleaned the whole apartment yesterday, so she'd be happy when she woke up. Kayla exchanged a pained glance with Dr. Chun over Ben's head. Your mom has an illness, Kayla explained gently. It's not something you could fix, no matter how hard you tried. It's like if someone has a broken leg. Playing music or making coffee won't heal the bone. Is it because of the needles? Ben asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. I told her those were bad. Dad said they were bad too, before he left. Before either adult could respond, a woman in a crisp blazer approached, clipboard in hand. Hello. I'm Monica Torres from the Department of Children and Families. She offered a practiced smile to Ben. You must be Benjamin Reynolds. Ben automatically stepped closer to Kayla, pressing against her side. Kayla felt a surge of protectiveness, even as she recognized the necessity of the social worker's presence. I need to conduct an initial assessment, Monica explained, her tone professional but not unkind. Is there somewhere we could speak privately? Dr. Chun gestured to an empty family consultation room. You can use that space. I'll have someone bring in some juice and snacks for Ben. Monica turned to Kayla. Are you a relative? No, I'm the nurse who found him at the hospital. Ben's been sleeping in our waiting room for the past 3 nights, while his mother was unconscious at home. The social worker's face remained neutral, but her pen moved rapidly across her form. I see. Well, thank you for your assistance. I can take things from here. I want Kayla to stay with me, Ben said, his fingers digging into Kayla's scrubs. She promised she wouldn't leave. Monica hesitated, clearly accustomed to establishing boundaries with well-meaning hospital staff. It's usually best if I speak with Ben alone first. Please. Ben's voice had taken on the edge of panic that Kayla had heard earlier in the ambulance. She knows about my mom. She helped us. Kayla met Monica's gaze steadily. I understand protocol, but Ben's been through a lot today. If he'd be more comfortable with me present for the initial conversation, I'm happy to help. She didn't mention that her shift had technically ended 3 hours ago, or that her daughter Lily would be wondering where she was. Some things mattered more than schedules. After a moment's consideration, Monica nodded. All right, for the preliminary discussion. In the consultation room, Ben sat beside Kayla on a small sofa, his backpack never leaving his grasp. Monica took the chair opposite them, arranging her papers with efficient movements. Ben, I know this has been a scary day for you, she began. I'd like to ask you some questions about what's been happening at home. There are no right or wrong answers. I just need to understand so I can figure out how to help you and your mom. Ben looked at Kayla, who gave him an encouraging nod. Okay, he said quietly. Can you tell me how long your mom has been sick? Ben's fingers worked at the zipper of his backpack. She started sleeping a lot on Thursday night. That was when she had a fight with her boyfriend, Rick. Rick. This was new information to Kayla. Does Rick live with you? Ben shook his head. No. He just comes over sometimes. Mom doesn't like him to stay when I'm there. His expression darkened. He brings the needles. Monica made a note. What happened after your mom fell asleep on Thursday? I went to school on Friday like normal. When I came home, she was still sleeping. Sometimes that happens. So I made myself dinner and did my homework. Ben's voice took on a mechanical quality, as though reciting facts from a textbook. On Saturday, I tried to wake her up, but she just made sounds. She didn't open her eyes. I got scared, but I remembered the last time this happened. She woke up after a while. The last time? Monica asked carefully. Last summer. She slept for 3 days that time. When she woke up, she cried a lot and promised she wouldn't do it again. Ben's eyes remained fixed on his backpack. She said the medicine she takes sometimes makes her too sleepy. She promised to be more careful. Kayla felt a cold knot form in her stomach. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern. Ben had been dealing with his mother's addiction issues for who knew how long, developing coping mechanisms no child should need to learn. What did you do when you couldn't wake her this time? Monica continued. I took care of things, Ben said, a hint of defensiveness entering his voice. I made sure the bills were paid. Mom showed me how to use her card at the ATM for emergencies, and I knew where she kept the PIN number. I got food from the corner store. I went to school every day. I did my homework. His chin lifted slightly. I even remembered to water the plant in the kitchen. The plant in question, Kayla recalled from her brief time in the apartment, had been brown and withered despite Ben's attentions, a small but poignant detail in the larger tragedy. That was very responsible of you, Monica said, her professional demeanor softening slightly. Can you tell me why you decided to go to the hospital? Ben hesitated, glancing at Kayla before answering. Mom wasn't waking up like the last time, and she started making weird noises when she breathed. I got scared. His voice dropped. I thought maybe if I went to the hospital, someone would notice me and help. But I couldn't just say my mom was sick at home, because they'd take me away. So you spent 3 nights in the waiting room, hoping someone would help without separating you from your mom, Monica summarized, her pen pausing over her notes. Ben nodded. I almost asked for help the first night, but then I heard some nurses talking about DHF. DCF, Monica corrected gently. Department of Children and Families. Yeah, they were talking about a baby that came in, and how DCF was taking it away from its mom. So I just stayed quiet. But then Kayla saw me. He looked up at Kayla with something like wonder in his expression. She figured it out. Monica turned her attention to Kayla. You said you found photos on Ben's phone? Kayla nodded grimly. He'd been documenting his mother's condition and his own activities, preparing meals, marking days on a calendar. From the timestamps, it looks like he's been essentially on his own for nearly 2 weeks, though his mother has been truly unresponsive for about 5 days. I was handling it, Ben interjected, a tremble entering his voice for the first time. I did everything right. I went to school. I kept clean. I didn't tell anyone our business. The phrase "our business" struck Kayla as particularly telling. The language of a household where secrets were currency and privacy was prized above safety. Monica set down her pen. Ben, you've been incredibly brave. But looking after yourself and your mom isn't your job. It's your mom's job to take care of you. And when she can't do that, we need to make sure you're still safe. Ben's face crumpled slightly. Are you going to take me away? Right now, I need to find a safe place for you to stay while your mom gets the help she needs, Monica explained carefully. Do you know of any adults who might be able to look after you? Maybe a friend's parent or someone from your family? Ben shook his head, clutching his backpack tighter, as though it contained everything that mattered in his rapidly disintegrating world. What about Mrs. Porter, your neighbor? Kayla suggested gently. You mentioned she gives you cookies sometimes. She's really old, Ben replied. And she has cats. I'm allergic to cats. Monica made another note. I'll need to look into temporary placement options then. There are some very nice foster families who... No! The word burst from Ben with unexpected force. Please, no foster homes. Tommy said they lock up the refrigerator and make you sleep in the basement if you wet the bed. And his foster brothers stole all his stuff. His eyes filled with tears for the first time since Kayla had met him. Please don't send me there. I'll be good. I promise I'll be good. Kayla felt something break inside her chest at Ben's plea. Before she could think better of it, she heard herself say, "What if he stayed with me, just temporarily, while you locate family members or another solution?" The words hung in the air, surprising both Monica and Kayla herself. Ben looked up at her with desperate hope. Monica's expression turned professional once more. "Ms. Lawson, I understand your concern, but there are strict protocols for emergency placements. You'd need to undergo background checks, home inspections." "I know the process," Kayla said. "My sister and her husband were foster parents for several years. I've been through the background checks as an extended family member. I have a clean record, a stable job, and a suitable home. My daughter Lily is 10. We have a spare bedroom that Ben could use." It was a rash offer, one that violated every principle of professional distance Kayla had maintained throughout her nursing career. She had no business inserting herself into this situation. And yet, looking at Ben's face, the careful mask of adulthood slipping to reveal the terrified child beneath, she couldn't bring herself to regret the impulse. "It would be highly unusual," Monica said, though Kayla could see her weighing the options. Foster placements were always in short supply, and emergency weekend placements were even harder to secure. "Just until Monday," Kayla pressed. "It would give Ben some stability while his mother's condition is being assessed, and it would give you time to locate family members or arrange a proper placement." She hesitated, then added, "And it would mean Ben could easily visit his mother in the hospital, since I work here." Monica tapped her pen against her clipboard, clearly conflicted. "I'd have to speak with my supervisor, and we'd need to conduct at least a preliminary home check today." "I understand," Kayla said. "I'm off shift now. You could come to my apartment this afternoon." Ben was looking between them, afraid to hope. "Could I really stay with Kayla?" he asked Monica. "Just until Mom gets better?" The raw need in his voice seemed to sway Monica. "Let me make some calls," she said, softening. "I'm not promising anything, but I'll see what we can arrange." As Monica stepped out of the room to confer with her supervisor, Ben turned to Kayla, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "Did you mean it?" he whispered. "About me staying with you?" Kayla thought about her small apartment, her demanding job, her daughter who already complained about not getting enough of her mother's attention. She thought about the complications this would add to her already chaotic life, the boundaries it would cross, the emotional entanglement it would inevitably create. Then she looked at Ben, this brave, resourceful child who had spent the past 2 weeks fighting a solitary battle to keep his world from collapsing, and knew there was only one answer she could give. "I meant it," she said softly. "If they'll let you stay with me, you won't have to be alone anymore." Ben's shoulders sagged with relief, and for the first time, Kayla saw him as simply a child. Not the miniature adult who had been meticulously managing an impossible situation, but a 7-year-old boy who had been carrying the weight of the world and was finally, cautiously, allowing someone else to help bear the load. Outside the consultation room window, hospital staff bustled through their routines, unaware of the small drama unfolding within. A nurse stepping far beyond her professional role, a social worker weighing protocols against practicalities, and a child teetering on the edge between a past defined by secrets and a future that might, just might, hold something like safety. In the trauma bay down the hall, monitors beeped steadily beside Diane Reynolds' bed, marking the precarious rhythm of a life hanging in the balance. And in the consultation room, Kayla Lawson made a silent promise to a child she barely knew, a promise that would irrevocably alter the course of all their lives. The elevator to Kayla's 5th-floor apartment crawled upward with aching slowness. Inside the metal box, an uncomfortable silence hung between the 3 passengers. Kayla, fidgeting with her keys, Ben, his possessions clutched close to his chest, and Monica Torres, the social worker, whose clipboard seemed permanently affixed to her hand as she made occasional notes. "We're almost there," Kayla said, attempting to fill the awkward quiet. "The building's old, but the apartment is nice. Cozy." Ben nodded, his face a careful mask of neutrality that no 7-year-old should have perfected. The preliminary arrangements had moved with surprising speed, a testament to Monica's efficiency and the chronic shortage of emergency foster placements on weekends. After a series of phone calls, background checks, and a hastily arranged interview with Monica's supervisor, Kayla had been granted temporary emergency guardianship of Ben until Monday, when a more permanent solution would be determined. The elevator doors finally slid open with a mechanical groan, revealing a narrow hallway with faded floral wallpaper. "We're at the end, 5D, Kayla explained, leading the way. Her heart was racing with an unexpected nervousness. Her apartment, which had always seemed perfectly adequate for herself and Lily, suddenly appeared in her mind's eye with all its flaws magnified. The worn furniture, the perpetually cluttered kitchen counter, the bathroom with its outdated fixtures. Would Monica deem it suitable? More importantly, how would Lily react to this unexpected houseguest? Kayla had called her daughter from the hospital, explaining the situation in simplified terms. A little boy needed a place to stay for the weekend while his mom was sick. Lily had responded with typical 10-year-old directness. "Is he nice? Does he like Minecraft? Can we order pizza?" But Kayla knew her daughter well enough to anticipate the more complicated questions that would inevitably follow. At the apartment door, Kayla paused, key in hand. "Just so you know, my daughter Lily is probably inside with Mrs. Abernathy from next door. I asked her to watch Lily until I got home." She directed this explanation primarily at Monica, whose expression remained professionally neutral. When Kayla opened the door, she was greeted by the sound of laughter from the living room. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor beside an elderly woman with silver hair, both of them focused on a board game spread out between them. "Mom!" Lily exclaimed, jumping up when she spotted Kayla. Her momentum halted when she noticed the strangers behind her mother. Curiosity and wariness battled across her freckled face as she took in Ben's small form and Monica's clipboard. "Hi, sweetheart," Kayla said, stepping into the apartment and gesturing for the others to follow. "Thank you for watching her, Mrs. Abernathy." The elderly neighbor rose with the careful movements of someone managing arthritis. "No trouble at all. We've been having a lovely morning." Her kind eyes settled on Ben with immediate warmth. "And who might this young man be?" "This is Ben," Kayla said, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "He's going to be staying with us for a few days. And this is Ms. Torres from the Department of Children and Families." Understanding dawned on Mrs. Abernathy's face. She'd been Kayla's neighbor long enough to know about DCF. "Well, isn't that nice?" she said, with the tact of a woman who had seen much in her 70-plus years. "I'll be right next door if you need anything at all. Any friend of Kayla's is a friend of mine." As Mrs. Abernathy gathered her things and took her leave, Lily approached Ben with the direct curiosity of childhood. She was tall for her age, with Kayla's dark hair but eyes of a startling blue that came from her absent father. "Hi," she said, extending her hand formally. "I'm Lily. I'm 10. Do you like Minecraft?" Ben stared at her hand for a moment before taking it in a quick, shy handshake. "I'm Ben. I'm 7. I've never played Minecraft, but I've seen videos of it." Lily's eyes widened in disbelief. "You've never played? Mom, he's never played Minecraft." Kayla couldn't help but smile at her daughter's scandalized tone. "Maybe you can show him later, Lily. But first, Ms. Torres needs to check out our apartment. And Ben might want to get settled." Monica was already surveying the living room, making notes on her clipboard. The apartment was modest but clean, a combined living and dining area, a small kitchen visible through an archway, and a hallway that led to 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. The furniture was a mix of IKEA pieces and yard sale finds, arranged to maximize the limited space. Potted plants occupied the windowsills, and framed photographs of Kayla and Lily hung on the walls alongside a few colorful abstract prints. "It's nice," Ben said quietly, and something in his tone made Kayla's heart ache. He was looking around the apartment with the careful assessment of someone much older, noting details an ordinary 7-year-old would never notice. The deadbolt on the door, the smoke detector with its steady green light, the organized calm of a home without chaos. "Let me show you where you'll be sleeping," Kayla said, guiding him toward the hallway. "We have a small guest room. It's really just an office with a pull-out sofa, but it's comfortable." The room in question was barely large enough for a desk, bookshelf, and the aforementioned sofa, which was currently folded into its bed form with fresh sheets and a blue comforter. Kayla had called ahead and asked Mrs. Abernathy to help Lily prepare the space. "You'll have some privacy here," Kayla explained. "There's a lamp by the bed if you like to read before sleeping. And the bathroom is right across the hall." Ben set his backpack and duffel bag carefully on the floor. "Thank you," he said, with that same heartbreaking formality. "It's really nice." Monica appeared in the doorway, clipboard still in hand. "Mind if I take a look?" Kayla stepped aside, allowing the social worker to inspect the room. Monica checked the window lock, noted the proximity to the bathroom, and jotted down a few more observations before nodding with approval. "I'll need to see the rest of the apartment as well," she said. The inspection continued through Lily's bedroom, a colorful space with soccer trophies on the dresser and solar system decals on the ceiling, and Kayla's more subdued room with its neatly made queen bed and nursing textbooks stacked on the nightstand. The kitchen passed muster despite the breakfast dishes still soaking in the sink, and the bathroom's dated tile didn't seem to concern Monica unduly. Back in the living room, Monica finally tucked her clipboard into her bag. "Everything seems to be in order," she said. "I'll need you to sign a few temporary guardianship forms. We'll reassess the situation on Monday after we've had a chance to investigate potential family placements and evaluate Ms. Reynolds' condition." As Kayla signed the paperwork, Monica crouched down to Ben's level. "Ben, do you feel comfortable staying here with Ms. Lawson and Lily for a few days?" Ben glanced at Kayla, then at Lily, who had retreated to the couch and was watching the proceedings with undisguised interest. "Yes," he said. "It's nice here. Ms. Lawson will take good care of you," Monica assured him. "And I'll be checking in regularly. Here's my card. It has my work number and my cell phone. You can call me anytime if you need anything or have questions." Ben accepted the card solemnly, slipping it into his jacket pocket. "Thank you," he said. Then, hesitantly, "When can I see my mom?" Monica exchanged a glance with Kayla. "Your mom needs to rest right now," she said carefully. "But once the doctors say it's okay, we'll arrange a visit." "I need to tell her where I am," Ben insisted, a note of anxiety entering his voice. "She'll be worried if she wakes up and I'm not there." The idea that Diane Reynolds might wake from her drug-induced stupor and immediately worry about her son, a son she had effectively abandoned for nearly 2 weeks, seemed tragically optimistic to Kayla. But she recognized the desperate need behind Ben's words. "I have to work the night shift tonight," Kayla said. "I could check on your mom and make sure she knows you're safe." Relief flooded Ben's features. "Could you give her a note from me? I want to write down where I am and that I'm okay." "Of course," Kayla agreed, though she suspected Diane would not be conscious enough to read any note tonight. The gesture was more for Ben's peace of mind than his mother's benefit. After a few more instructions and reminders, Monica finally took her leave, promising to return on Sunday for a follow-up check. As the door closed behind her, a strange silence fell over the apartment. Kayla, Ben, and Lily regarded one another with the awkward awareness of strangers suddenly thrust into domestic intimacy. Lily broke the tension first. "Are you hungry, Ben? Mom always says hospital food is gross, so you probably need real food." Ben nodded cautiously. "A little. I had a muffin this morning." "A muffin isn't breakfast," Lily declared with authority. "Mom, can we make pancakes? It's not too late for pancakes, is it?" Kayla glanced at her watch, nearly noon, after one of the longest mornings of her life. "Pancakes sound perfect," she agreed, grateful for her daughter's uncomplicated approach to their unusual situation. "Ben, would you like to help? I know how to make pancakes," he offered. the first hint of childish enthusiasm breaking through his careful reserve. "Mom taught me. You have to watch the bubbles to know when to flip them." "Exactly right," Kayla said, leading the way to the kitchen. "Lily, can you get the mixing bowl? Ben, the flowers in that cabinet if you want to measure it out." As the children moved around the kitchen with growing animation, Lily showing off her egg-cracking technique, Ben demonstrating his careful measuring skills, Kayla felt some of the day's tension begin to release. For this brief moment, with pancake batter being stirred and maple syrup being retrieved from the refrigerator, they were just three people sharing a late breakfast. The circumstances that had brought them together, with all their complications and heartaches, could wait outside the kitchen door. Dr. Chun said she's stable but still unconscious, Kayla explained to Miguel as she tied her hair back, preparing for her night shift. She had left Ben in Mrs. Abernathy's care for the evening, with Lily proudly appointed as his official tour guide to the apartment's features and rules. They're moving her to the ICU for monitoring. Suspected multi-organ damage from prolonged respiratory depression. Miguel shook his head, typing login information into the computer at the nurse's station. And the kid was alone with her like that for days? Jesus. Almost 2 weeks, Kayla corrected, checking her phone once more before tucking it into her scrubs pocket. He's been basically taking care of himself and trying to care for her. He's 7 years old, Miguel. Some people shouldn't be parents, Miguel muttered, then caught himself. Sorry, that was judgmental. No, I get it, Kayla sighed. The thing is, from what Ben said, his mom wasn't always like this. The addiction took over after the father went to prison. And Ben loves her so much. He's been protecting her, keeping their situation secret, afraid of being separated from her. Miguel gave her a sidelong glance. And now you've taken him home with you. That's a pretty major boundary to cross, Kayla. It's just for the weekend, she said defensively. The alternative was emergency foster care, which terrified him. You should have seen his face, Miguel. I'm not judging, he said, raising his hands in surrender. I get it, but just be careful, okay? Cases like these can really get under your skin. I know what I'm doing, Kayla insisted, though the truth was far more complicated. She'd been acting on instinct from the moment she'd approached Ben in the waiting room, driven by something that went beyond professional compassion. Something about this solemn-eyed child had reached past all her careful boundaries and grabbed hold of her heart. If you say so, Miguel replied, clearly unconvinced. Just remember you can't save everyone. And it's not fair to your daughter if you try. His words stung with their uncomfortable truth. Lily had seemed to accept Ben's presence with remarkable ease. But how would she feel if she sensed her mother becoming emotionally invested in this other child? Kayla had always been careful to ensure Lily never felt neglected despite the demands of a single mother's nursing career. Was she risking that careful balance? Before she could dwell further on these concerns, Dr. Chan appeared at the nurse's station. Kayla, got a minute? He asked, gesturing toward the hall. I wanted to update you on Diane Reynolds. They moved to a quieter corner, where Dr. Chen's professional demeanor softened slightly. Her condition has stabilized, but we're looking at significant damage. Liver function tests are concerning, and there's evidence of aspiration pneumonia developing. We've got her on IV antibiotics and supportive care. Is she conscious? Kayla asked. In and out, mostly confused when awake. She's asked about her son a few times, but doesn't seem to comprehend the answers. He hesitated. The police found evidence of prescription fraud in her apartment. She's been forging scripts for oxycodone and selling them to finance her heroin habit. They'll be pressing charges once she's stable enough. Kayla closed her eyes briefly. So even if she recovers physically, she's facing criminal charges, yes. And given her condition and the circumstances, DCF will almost certainly seek at least temporary removal of the child from her custody. Dr. Chen's expression was sympathetic but realistic. I heard you've taken him in for the weekend. It's a temporary arrangement, Kayla said, repeating the assurance she'd been giving everyone, including herself, just until they find family members or a suitable placement. Dr. Chun nodded, though something in his eyes suggested he understood the situation might not remain so straightforward. He's lucky you found him when you did. Both of them are. As Dr. Chun moved on to his next case, Kayla found herself standing outside Diane Reynolds' ICU room. Through the glass partition, she could see the unconscious woman, so thin her collarbones jutted sharply beneath the hospital gown. Tubes and wires connected her to the machines monitoring her precarious hold on life. It was hard to reconcile this broken figure with the mother Ben spoke of with such loyalty and love. Kayla entered the room quietly, checking the monitors and IV lines with professional habit. Diane's breathing was shallow but regular, supported by supplemental oxygen. Up close, Kayla could see the premature lines etched around her eyes and mouth, signs of a hard life that had aged her beyond her years. "Ms. Reynolds," Kayla said softly, knowing the woman probably couldn't hear her. "I'm Kayla Lawson, a nurse here. I'm taking care of your son, Ben, for a few days while you get better." There was no response, not that Kayla had expected one. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, the note Ben had carefully written before she left for her shift. "Ben asked me to give you this," she continued, placing the note on the bedside table where Diane might see it if she woke. "He wants you to know he's safe and that he's waiting for you to get better." Kayla studied the woman's face, searching for some sign of the mother Ben so desperately wanted to protect. Beneath the ravages of addiction and the pallor of illness, Diane Reynolds had once been pretty, with the same delicate bone structure that made Ben's features so expressive. "He's an amazing little boy," Kayla said, a hint of accusation creeping into her voice despite her best intentions. "He's been so brave, trying to take care of everything on his own. He loves you very much." The steady beeping of the monitors was the only response. "I don't know what happened to you," Kayla continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "I don't know how you ended up here, but that child deserves better than this. He deserves a mother who stays awake, who keeps him safe." Her throat tightened unexpectedly. "He deserves a chance to just be a kid." The words hung in the sterile hospital air, neither heard nor acknowledged by their intended recipient. Kayla stood for a moment longer, then turned to leave, her duty, both the professional one of checking on a patient and the personal one of delivering Ben's message, completed. At the door, she paused, looking back at the frail figure in the bed. "He's waiting for you," she said softly. "Please don't let him down again." The weekend unfolded with a strange mixture of awkwardness and surprising moments of ordinary domesticity. Ben, initially reserved and watchful, gradually began to relax in the ordered calm of Kayla's apartment. He followed the household rules with meticulous care, made his pull-out bed with hospital corners that would have impressed Kayla's nursing instructors, and offered to help with chores before being asked. "You don't have to wash the dishes, Ben," Kayla told him on Saturday evening, finding him standing on a chair at the sink, carefully scrubbing pots from dinner. "That's not your job here." He looked at her with genuine confusion. "But I always do the dishes at home. And you made dinner for me, so it's only fair." Kayla gently took the sponge from his small hands. "In this house, kids help out, but they don't have to do all the grown-up jobs. Why don't you and Lily pick a movie for us to watch instead? I'll finish up here." The concept of childhood without adult responsibilities seemed foreign to Ben. He approached play with the same serious concentration he applied to chores, as though fun were another task to be completed correctly. Watching him with Lily, who had taken on her self-appointed role as Ben's guide to normal childhood with evangelical fervor, was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. "No, like this," Lily instructed, demonstrating how to build a proper pillow fort in the living room. "You need to use the couch cushions for the foundation, or it'll collapse." Ben followed her directions with solemn attention, his face lighting up with quiet wonder when the completed structure stood firm. "It's like a real building," he marveled, "with architecture and everything." Saturday night found all three of them inside the pillow fort, watching a movie on Kayla's laptop. Ben, nestled between Kayla and Lily, fell asleep before the halfway point, his head gradually drooping until it rested against Kayla's arm. The simple trust of the gesture made her chest tighten. He's really tired, Lily whispered, peering around Kayla at the sleeping boy. He's had a tough week, Kayla whispered back, carefully adjusting her position to make Ben more comfortable. Lily was quiet for a moment, watching Ben with thoughtful eyes. His mom is really sick, isn't she? Like, not just a cold or something. Yes, Kayla admitted, never one to shield her daughter from difficult truths. She's very sick. She has an illness that makes her make bad choices sometimes. Like drugs? Lily asked, with the directness of a child raised by a medical professional who didn't believe in euphemisms. Yes, like drugs, Kayla confirmed. And that means Ben has had to take care of himself a lot, in ways that kids shouldn't have to. Lily considered this, her young face serious in the glow of the laptop screen. That's why he tried to wash all the dishes and made his bed so perfect? I think so, Kayla said, impressed by her daughter's perceptiveness. He's had to be very grown up for a long time. That's sad, Lily declared. Then, after another thoughtful pause, can we keep him? The innocent question caught Kayla off guard. What do you mean, honey? Can Ben stay with us? Not just for the weekend, but like, for real. Lily's blue eyes were earnest. He doesn't have anybody to take care of him right now, and we have the extra room and he's nice. He'd be like the brother I always wanted. Kayla felt a complicated surge of emotions. Pride in her daughter's generous heart, worry about the implications of such an arrangement, and an unexpected resonance with the idea that frightened her with its appeal. It's not that simple, Lily, she explained gently. Ben has his mom, and she loves him very much. She's sick right now, but she might get better. And there might be other family members who could take care of him while she gets the help she needs. But what if there isn't anyone else? Lily persisted. What if they can't find anybody? Then the social workers will find a good foster family for him, Kayla said, even as something in her rebelled against the thought of Ben being placed with strangers. People who are specially trained to help kids like Ben whose families are going through hard times. But we could be his foster family, Lily argued with the impeccable logic of a 10-year-old. You help sick people all the time. That's your job. Being a foster parent is different from being a nurse, Kayla said, though the distinction felt increasingly arbitrary when she looked at the sleeping child beside her. It's a big responsibility, and it would change our lives a lot. Our lives are already changed, Lily pointed out. He's here now, and he needs us. Before Kayla could formulate a response to this uncomfortable truth, Ben stirred slightly in his sleep, murmuring something inaudible. His small hand found Kayla's and gripped it tightly, as though even in sleep he was afraid of being left alone. Lily gave her mother a look that clearly said, "See what I mean? We'll see what happens," Kayla whispered, the only honest answer she could give. "For now, let's just make sure he has a good weekend. Okay?" Lily nodded, apparently satisfied with this compromise. "I'm going to teach him how to play soccer tomorrow. He said he's never played on a real team before." As the movie continued playing, largely unwatched, Kayla found herself contemplating her daughter's simple suggestion with growing seriousness. Can we keep him? The question echoed in her mind, raising others in its wake. What would it mean for their family of 2 to become 3? What about her demanding work schedule already stretched thin? What about Ben's mother and her legal troubles? What about the professional boundaries she'd already crossed by bringing Ben home? Ben's hand remained wrapped around hers, his breathing deep and even in the peaceful sleep of a child who, perhaps for the first time in a long while, felt truly safe. And in that moment, watching over 2 sleeping children in a pillow fort, one hers by birth, one entrusted to her through the strange workings of fate, Kayla found herself unable to imagine any other arrangement. Sunday morning arrived with weak November sunshine filtering through the apartment windows and the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen. Kayla, always an early riser regardless of her shift schedule, was surprised to find Ben already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a book open before him. "Good morning," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "You're up early. Did you sleep okay?" Ben nodded, closing his book, an illustrated encyclopedia of dinosaurs he'd brought from home. "I always wake up early," he explained. I like the quiet time before everyone else gets up. The simple statement revealed volumes about his life at home. A child creating moments of peace for himself in what was likely a chaotic environment. I like early mornings too, Kayla said, sitting across from him. What are you reading about? Triceratops? Ben replied, his face lighting up with genuine enthusiasm. They were herbivores, but they could defend themselves really well with their horns and neck frill. They were peaceful unless they got threatened. Sounds like a good approach to life, Kayla commented, sipping her coffee. Ben considered this with surprising seriousness. Yeah, I think so too. That's why I like them best. Before Kayla could respond, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Monica Torres' name. Good morning, Ms. Torres, Kayla answered, giving Ben a reassuring smile. Good morning, Ms. Lawson, came the professional reply. I hope I'm not calling too early, but I wanted to update you on some developments regarding Ben's case. Of course, Kayla said, her pulse quickening slightly. Is everything okay? I've been conducting family outreach over the weekend, Monica explained. We've located Ben's maternal grandmother in Florida, a Mrs. Eleanor Winters. That's great news, Kayla said, though she was surprised by the twinge of disappointment she felt. Ben mentioned she wasn't in contact with his mother. That appears to be the case, Monica confirmed. According to Mrs. Winters, she and her daughter haven't spoken in over 3 years, following a dispute related to Ms. Reynolds' drug use and her relationship with Ben's father. However, Mrs. Winters was very concerned when I informed her of the situation and expressed interest in taking custody of Ben. Kayla glanced at Ben, who was watching her intently, clearly aware the conversation concerned him. What does that mean for next steps? She asked, moving toward the living room for a bit more privacy. Mrs. Winters is booking a flight to Boston for tomorrow, Monica explained. She'll need to meet with us at the DCF office to discuss potential temporary guardianship. Given that she's a blood relative with no disqualifying history, she would likely be considered before foster placement. I see, Kayla said, processing this information. And what about Ben's mother? Has there been any change in her condition? The hospital reports she's more alert today but still quite confused. The medical team is continuing to evaluate her, but given the criminal charges pending and her ongoing health issues, she won't be in a position to resume custody in the immediate future. Monica paused. I understand you've been working at the hospital. Have you had any contact with Ms. Reynolds? The question carried a subtle note of professional concern, a reminder of the boundaries Kayla had already crossed. I checked on her briefly during my shift, Kayla admitted. Ben had asked me to deliver a note from him. She was unconscious at the time. I see, Monica said, her tone neutral. Ms. Lawson, I want to be clear about something. While I appreciate your willingness to provide emergency placement for Ben this weekend, it's important to maintain appropriate professional distance. Getting too personally involved can complicate the case and, ultimately, make things more difficult for Ben. The gentle reprimand stung, more so because Kayla knew it was justified. I understand, she said. My only concern is Ben's welfare. Of course, Monica acknowledged, which is why I wanted to prepare you and him for the likely change in placement tomorrow. I'll be conducting a follow-up visit this afternoon as scheduled, and we can discuss the transition plan then. After ending the call, Kayla returned to the kitchen, where Ben sat rigidly in his chair, anxiety evident in every line of his small body. Was that about me? He asked immediately. Are they sending me somewhere else? Kayla sat down beside him, choosing her words carefully. That was Miss Torres. She's found your grandmother in Florida, your mom's mom. Apparently, she's coming to Boston tomorrow to see you. Ben's eyes widened. Grandma Eleanor? Really? There was a mix of emotions in his voice. Surprise, tentative hope, and uncertainty. You know her? Kayla asked. Ben nodded slowly. We used to visit her a lot when I was little. She has a house near the beach. But then Mom got mad at her, and we stopped going. His brow furrowed. Grandma used to call sometimes, but Mom wouldn't talk to her. Do you remember her well? Were you close? She used to send me birthday cards with $20 inside. Ben recalled. And she made really good cookies with pecans in them. She has a cat named Mr. Whiskers. His voice dropped to a whisper. I liked her. She was nice to me. But Mom said she was judgmental and didn't understand. The fragments of memory painted a picture of a relationship severed not by the grandmother's choice, but by Diane's addiction and defensiveness. Kayla felt a complicated mix of emotions. Relief that Ben had a family member who might care for him, sadness at the prospect of his leaving, and concern about disrupting the fragile sense of security he'd begun to develop. Your grandmother is coming to see about taking care of you while your mom gets better, Kayla explained gently. Ms. Torres thinks you might go to stay with her for a while. Ben's fingers worked anxiously at the edge of his dinosaur book. In Florida? But what about Mom? I can't visit her if I'm in Florida. I know it's scary to think about being far from your mom, Kayla acknowledged. But your grandmother loves you, and she wants to help. And there are ways to stay in touch with your mom, phone calls, video chats. But it won't be the same, Ben insisted, distress breaking through his usually controlled demeanor. And what if Mom needs me? What if she forgets to take her medicine or pay the bills? What if she gets lonely without me? The questions revealed the terrible role reversal that had become Ben's normal. A child who believed it was his responsibility to care for his parent, to keep her functioning, to make sure she survived. Ben, Kayla said gently, it's not your job to take care of your mom. It's her job to take care of you. And right now, she needs help from doctors and other grown-ups to get better. But I'm good at taking care of things, Ben countered, a note of desperation entering his voice. I did everything right. I went to school. I made dinner. I kept quiet when she was sleeping. You've been incredibly brave and responsible, Kayla said, her heart breaking at his plea. But you're 7 years old, Ben. You should be playing and learning and just being a kid, not worrying about bills or medicine or taking care of a grown-up. Ben's lower lip trembled. But if I don't do it, who will? Dad's in jail. And Mom needs me. She told me I'm the only good thing in her life. The weight of those words, the terrible burden placed on this child's small shoulders, made Kayla momentarily speechless. Before she could find a response, Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hair tousled from sleep. What's going on? She asked, sensing the tension in the room. Is Ben okay? I'm fine, Ben said automatically, the mask of composure slipping back into place with practiced ease. Kayla gave her daughter a reassuring smile. We just got some news. Ben's grandmother is coming to Boston tomorrow to see him. Oh, Lily said, processing this information. Her disappointment was evident. Does that mean he's leaving? We don't know all the details yet, Kayla hedged, not wanting to upset either child further. Ms. Torres is coming by this afternoon to talk about it. For now, let's just have a good day together. Okay? Didn't you want to teach Ben how to play soccer? Lily brightened at the reminder. Yeah, the weather's nice today. We can go to the park. Ben looked between Kayla and Lily, his expression uncertain. Is that okay? Can we still do that, even though I might be leaving? Of course, Kayla assured him. Nothing's changed for today. Let's have breakfast, and then we'll head to the park. As the children are breakfast, Kayla found herself mentally rehearsing arguments for why Ben should stay in Boston. Closer to his mother, in a familiar environment, with people he'd begun to trust. But the rational part of her mind knew these arguments were colored by her own growing attachment to this solemn-eyed child. Monica was right. She had crossed professional boundaries, allowed herself to become emotionally involved in a way that complicated an already complex situation. And yet, watching Ben cautiously engage with Lily's enthusiastic breakfast chatter, seeing the small glimpses of ordinary childhood emerging from beneath his careful self-control, Kayla couldn't bring herself to regret the boundaries she'd crossed. For better or worse, she had become invested in this child's future. And whatever happened tomorrow with Ben's grandmother, Kayla knew with sudden clarity that she was no longer content to be merely a temporary way station in Ben's journey. The realization was both frightening and exhilarating. A silent commitment made in a Sunday morning kitchen, while two children discussed the relative merits of chocolate versus plain waffles, and the November sun cast gentle shadows across a borrowed domestic scene that already felt, impossibly, like family. The hospital room was unnaturally quiet, the typical beeps and hums of medical equipment subdued to a gentle background rhythm. Afternoon sunlight filtered through the half-drawn blinds, casting striped shadows across the bed where Diane Reynolds lay. Her eyes, open now but clouded with confusion, darted around the unfamiliar surroundings before settling on the woman seated beside her bed. Ben. The name escaped her cracked lips in a hoarse whisper. Where's Ben? Kayla leaned forward, her nurse's instinct to reassure overriding the complex emotions she felt toward this woman. Ben is safe, she said. He's staying with me for now. I'm Kayla Lawson, a nurse here at Mercy General. Diane's gaze sharpened slightly, a flash of suspicion cutting through the medication-induced haze. Why would he be with you? Where am I? You're in the ICU at Mercy General Hospital, Kayla explained with professional calm. You were found unconscious in your apartment 5 days ago. Ben had been trying to take care of you, but eventually, he came to the hospital seeking help. A series of emotions crossed Diane's gaunt face. Confusion, disbelief, and finally, a dawning horror as fragments of memory began to resurface. 5 days? She whispered. That can't be right. Actually, according to Ben, you were unconscious for nearly 2 weeks, Kayla corrected gently. The last 5 days you've been here, receiving treatment. Diane's hand moved weakly to her face, fingers trembling as they traced the oxygen cannula in her nostrils. I remember Rick coming over, she said distantly, as though speaking from the bottom of a well. We had a fight. He brought some new stuff, said it was pure. Her voice trailed off, the memories disjointed and hazy. You overdosed, Kayla said, keeping her voice neutral despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. Heroin laced with fentanyl, according to your toxicology report. You're lucky to be alive. If Ben hadn't sought help when he did. Ben, Diane interrupted, her expression crumpling. My baby. Is he really okay? He must have been so scared. Tears welled in her bloodshot eyes. I never meant for this to happen. I just wanted to stop feeling so awful for a little while. The raw pain in her voice made it difficult for Kayla to maintain her professional distance. Despite everything, despite the neglect and danger Ben had been subjected to, Kayla could see the genuine love this broken woman felt for her son. He was more than scared, Kayla said, unable to keep the edge from her voice. He was alone, taking care of himself, trying to take care of you. He was measuring water into your mouth with a turkey baster to keep you hydrated. He was paying bills and making his own meals and going to school like nothing was wrong. All because he was terrified someone would take him away from you. Diane turned her face away, tears tracking silently down her hollow cheeks. I'm a terrible mother, she whispered. I love him so much, but I keep failing him. Ben doesn't think you've failed him, Kayla said, gentling her tone. He loves you. He believes in you. He's been defending you to everyone who would listen. A sob escaped Diane's throat. He shouldn't have to defend me. He shouldn't have to take care of me. God, what have I done to my little boy? Kayla had encountered many addicts during her nursing career, had watched the cycle of remorse, resolution, and relapse play out countless times. She'd learned to maintain a compassionate but skeptical distance. But there was something in Diane's grief that seemed to cut through the familiar patterns of addiction, a genuine horror at what she had subjected her son to. Ms. Reynolds, Kayla said, choosing her words carefully. Ben needs more than love. He needs stability, security, a chance to just be a child. I know, Diane whispered, turning back to face Kayla with red-rimmed eyes. I know that better than anyone. I've tried so hard to get clean, to be the mother he deserves. But every time I think I'm making progress, something happens. Dave gets arrested, I lose my job, the bills pile up, and I can't handle it. The pressure crushes me, and the only thing that makes it stop is the drugs. She closed her eyes, fresh tears seeping from beneath her lids. It wasn't always like this. Before Dave went to prison, before the drugs took over, I was a good mom. I really was. Something in her plea resonated with Kayla. Not because she believed the excuses, but because she recognized the pattern of a life spiraling out of control, one poor decision compounding the next until escape seemed impossible. Your mother is coming to Boston, Kayla said, watching Diane's face closely. Eleanor Winters. The Department of Children and Families contacted her about possibly taking custody of Ben while you recover. Diane's eyes flew open, panic replacing grief. My mother? No, she can't. She'll never give him back. She's always thought I was a failure. She'll use this to take him away permanently. She's his grandmother, Kayla pointed out, and right now, she may be the only family member available to care for him. You don't understand, Diane insisted, agitation making the monitors beside her bed beep more rapidly. My mother is controlling, judgmental. She drove my father away with her perfectionism. Nothing was ever good enough for her. Not my grades, not my job, certainly not Dave. When she found out I was using again after Ben was born, she gave me an ultimatum, rehab or no contact. But the rehab she wanted me to go to was in Arizona, 3 months minimum. I couldn't leave my baby for 3 months. Kayla listened to this outpouring with growing understanding of the family dynamics that had led to Ben's isolation. So you chose no contact instead. I chose my son, Diane corrected, her voice strengthening with conviction despite her physical weakness. Maybe that sounds crazy after what just happened, but I truly believed I could handle it on my own. I didn't want to be separated from Ben, and I didn't want him growing up with my mother's constant criticism, her impossible standards. And yet, Ben has fond memories of her, Kayla observed. He remembered visiting her in Florida, receiving birthday cards. He said she was nice to him. Diane sagged back against her pillows, the brief surge of energy fading. I know she loves him, she admitted quietly, and he loves her. I was afraid she'd turn him against me, make him see all my failures, all my weaknesses. A bitter smile twisted her lips. But I've done that myself now, haven't I? I've shown him exactly how broken his mother is. The raw self-awareness in Diane's words gave Kayla pause. There was clarity here, beneath the haze of withdrawal and medication. A genuine understanding of the damage she'd caused. Ms. Reynolds. Diane, she interrupted. Please, if you're taking care of my son, you should call me Diane. Diane, Kayla amended. Ben doesn't see you as broken. He sees you as someone who needs his help. He's been carrying an enormous burden, trying to keep your household functioning, trying to protect you from the consequences of your actions. He's always been that way, Diane said softly, a glimmer of pride breaking through her despair. So responsible, so caring. Even as a little toddler, he'd try to bring me tissues when I was crying, or pat my hand when I seemed sad. Her expression clouded. I've taken advantage of that, haven't I? I've exploited my own child's compassion. Before Kayla could respond, a nurse appeared in the doorway. Ms. Reynolds needs her medication, she said, giving Kayla a pointed look that clearly communicated you shouldn't be here. Of course, Kayla said, rising from her chair. I should get going anyway. My daughter is watching Ben, but I promised I wouldn't be long. Wait, Diane called, reaching out weakly. Please, could Ben come see me? I need to see him, to tell him I'm sorry, to make sure he's really okay. Kayla hesitated. The doctors would need to approve a visit, and given the circumstances, DCF would need to be present as well. I understand, Diane said, her hand falling back to the bed. Just tell him I love him, please. Tell him I'm getting better, and I'm going to make this right somehow. Tell him none of this is his fault. As Kayla turned to leave, Diane added in a small voice, and thank you for finding him, for caring for him. You didn't have to do that. The gratitude stung in unexpected ways, reminding Kayla of the murky ethical territory she'd entered. I'm just doing what anyone would do, she said, knowing even as the words left her mouth that it wasn't true. Most people would have maintained professional boundaries, would have called DCF and stepped back, would not have brought a stranger's child into their home and begun to imagine a future with him. Outside in the hallway, Kayla leaned against the wall, processing the complex encounter. Diane Reynolds was not the heartless addict she had imagined, not a mother who had callously abandoned her child for the sake of her next high. She was a broken woman who loved her son deeply but was trapped in a cycle of addiction that had overwhelmed her good intentions. The insight didn't excuse her actions or erase the harm done to Ben, but it added layers of complexity to a situation Kayla had thought she understood. As she made her way out of the hospital, Kayla's phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Abernathy. The social worker called. "She'll be at your apartment at 3 p.m. The children are playing a board game. Ben is asking when you'll be back." Glancing at her watch, Kayla saw it was already past 2. She quickened her pace, mind racing with the implications of her conversation with Diane. How much should she share with Monica Torres? With Ben? What was truly in the child's best interest? A grandmother who might be as controlling as Diane described? A mother who loved him but repeatedly put him in danger? Or some other arrangement entirely? The questions followed her all the way home, where the sight of Ben and Lily huddled over a Monopoly board provided a temporary respite from the weight of adult decisions hanging in the balance. "Mrs. Winters is scheduled to arrive in Boston by noon tomorrow," Monica explained, reviewing her notes at Kayla's kitchen table. "She's booked a hotel downtown and will meet us at the DCF office at 2 o'clock. We'll conduct an initial family assessment, and if everything checks out, we'll begin the process of arranging temporary guardianship." Kayla nodded, glancing toward the living room where Ben and Lily were watching a nature documentary about deep-sea creatures, the volume just loud enough to mask the adults' conversation. "And Ben's mother? What's the plan regarding her involvement?" Kayla asked, keeping her voice low. Monica's expression remained professionally neutral. "Ms. Reynolds will need to demonstrate significant progress in addressing her addiction issues before supervised visitation can begin. Given the pending criminal charges related to prescription fraud, that process may be complicated." "I visited her today," Kayla admitted. "She was conscious, oriented. She seems genuinely remorseful about what happened." A flicker of disapproval crossed Monica's face. "Ms. Lawson, as I mentioned yesterday, it's important to maintain appropriate boundaries in these situations. Visiting Ms. Reynolds outside your professional capacity as a nurse—" "I am a nurse," Kayla interjected, "and I'm currently responsible for her son's care. I wanted to assess her condition firsthand." Monica held Kayla's gaze for a long moment. "Your concern for Ben is admirable," she said finally. "But I need to be clear. Your role as an emergency placement provider is temporary. It was never intended to extend beyond this weekend." "I understand that," Kayla said, though the prospect of saying goodbye to Ben tomorrow had become increasingly painful to contemplate. "I just want what's best for him." "As do we all," Monica replied. "Which is why family placement with his grandmother is our priority. Maintaining family connections is crucial for a child's sense of identity and belonging. Even if that means sending him to Florida, away from everything familiar, away from his mother." Kayla couldn't keep the challenge from her voice. Monica's pen tapped lightly against her clipboard. "Ms. Lawson, I sense you've developed a strong attachment to Ben in a very short time. While that speaks to your compassion, it can also cloud objective judgment about a child's long-term best interests." The gentle reprimand stung because it contained elements of truth. Kayla had formed an unusually strong connection with Ben, one that defied rational explanation and certainly violated professional norms. But was that connection really clouding her judgment, or was it providing insight that clinical detachment might miss? "I've spent more time with Ben this weekend than anyone else," Kayla said carefully. "I've observed his behaviors, his concerns, his needs. That gives me a perspective worth considering." "Doesn't it?" "Of course," Monica acknowledged. "And I'd like to hear your observations. But also remember that DCF's decisions must balance immediate comfort against long-term stability. Family placement, when available and appropriate, typically offers the best chance for that stability." Before Kayla could respond, Ben appeared in the kitchen doorway, his expression guarded. "Are you talking about tomorrow?" he asked directly. "About my grandma coming?" Monica offered him a gentle smile. "Yes, Ben. We were discussing the plans for tomorrow. Your grandmother is very excited to see you. Ben approached the table, his small shoulders set with determination. Do I have to go with her? To Florida? Monica and Kayla exchanged glances, the social worker clearly weighing how much to share with a 7-year-old regarding decisions that would profoundly impact his life. Nothing has been decided yet, Monica said diplomatically. First, we'll all meet together and talk about what would be best for you while your mom gets the help she needs. But my mom is here in Boston, Ben persisted. If I go to Florida, I won't get to see her. There would be visits, Monica assured him, and phone calls, video chats. Your grandmother understands how important it is for you to stay connected with your mom. Ben's gaze dropped to his sneakers. Mom says grandma is really strict and judgmental. That's why they don't talk anymore. Monica's expression remained carefully neutral. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated relationships. Your grandmother and your mom have had some disagreements, but they both love you very much. I want to stay here, Ben said suddenly, looking up at Kayla with an intensity that made her heart twist. With Kayla and Lily. They're nice to me and it's quiet here, and I could still visit Mom at the hospital. The raw plea in his voice created a heavy silence in the kitchen. Kayla felt torn between the fierce desire to advocate for what Ben wanted and the rational understanding that Monica was right. Her growing attachment to this child was complicating an already difficult situation. Ben, Monica said gently, I know change is scary, especially after everything you've been through, but part of my job is to make sure you're somewhere safe and stable in the long term. Ms. Lawson very kindly offered her home for the weekend, but we need to think about what's best for you going forward. But what if staying here is what's best? Ben countered, a hint of the stubborn resilience that had kept him going through 2 weeks of abandonment flashing in his eyes. I like it here. I feel safe. And Lily said I could be like her brother. Kayla felt a complicated surge of emotions, pride in Ben's advocacy for himself, concern about the attachment he'd formed so quickly, and a deep, resonant certainty that she wasn't ready to let him go. Ben, she said carefully, Ms. Torres is right that we need to think about what's best for you in the long run. Your grandmother is family, and that's important. But I want you to know that no matter what happens tomorrow, you've become important to me and Lily. We care about you. Ben's eyes searched her face, seeking reassurance. So even if I go with Grandma, we could still talk sometimes? You wouldn't just forget about me? The question broke something in Kayla's heart. The revelation that beneath Ben's remarkable self-sufficiency lay the deep fear of being forgotten, discarded, left behind. Ben, I could never forget you, she said with absolute conviction. No matter what happens next, you will always matter to me. I promise. Something in her tone must have convinced him, because his shoulders relaxed slightly. Okay, he said quietly, but I still want to stay, just so you know. As he turned to rejoin Lily in the living room, Monica gave Kayla a significant look. Ms. Lawson, could I speak with you privately for a moment? Of course, Kayla agreed, leading the way to her bedroom and closing the door behind them. Monica's professional demeanor softened slightly once they were alone. Kayla, she said, switching to a first-name basis for the first time, I need to be direct with you. Are you considering applying to become a foster parent for Ben? The question, while not entirely unexpected, still caught Kayla off guard with its directness. I've been thinking about it, she admitted. Not initially, but after spending this weekend with him, seeing how well he fits with us, how much Lily has taken to him. Monica nodded, neither encouraging nor dismissing. I suspected as much, and I want to be clear about what that would entail. The approval process for foster parents is rigorous: home studies, background checks, training courses. Takes months, not days. And even if you were approved, there's no guarantee Ben would be placed with you, especially with his grandmother actively seeking custody. I understand that, Kayla said, though the reality of those obstacles made her heart sink. Furthermore, Monica continued, while I appreciate the connection you've formed with Ben, I have concerns about the circumstances. You met him as a nurse in a professional capacity. You learned details about his case through your position at the hospital. There are ethical considerations there that can't be ignored. The words stung, though Kayla recognized their truth. "I know how it looks," she acknowledged. "But this isn't about me wanting to save a child in need, or some kind of professional boundary confusion. There's something special about Ben. Something that connected with both me and my daughter in a way I can't fully explain." Monica's expression softened further. "I believe your intentions are genuine, Kayla, but I also believe you're making decisions based on an emotional connection formed during a crisis. That's not always the best foundation for long-term commitments. So what are you saying? That I should just let him go tomorrow without even trying to provide an alternative? I'm saying you should prepare yourself and Ben for the likelihood that he will be placed with his grandmother," Monica clarified. "If you're serious about becoming a foster parent, I can provide resources and information, but don't make promises to Ben, explicit or implicit, that you might not be able to keep." The warning was fair, Kayla had to admit. She had no right to make promises about Ben's future when so many factors remained beyond her control. "I understand," she said finally, "but I hope you'll consider Ben's wishes in your recommendations. He's been through enough without being forced into an arrangement that frightens him." "I always consider the child's perspective," Monica assured her. "But I also have to balance that against other factors: family ties, long-term stability, legal considerations. This isn't a simple situation, Kayla." "No," Kayla agreed quietly. "It's not simple at all." As Monica gathered her things to leave, promising to return the next morning to accompany Ben to the DCF office, Kayla found herself standing in the doorway of the living room, watching Ben and Lily sprawled on the couch, absorbed in their documentary. The casual intimacy of the scene, Lily occasionally pointing at the screen, Ben nodding in solemn appreciation of whatever marine fact she'd highlighted, felt both precious and precarious, a borrowed moment of normalcy that might evaporate with tomorrow's decisions. Ben seemed to sense her gaze, looking up with a questioning expression. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," Kayla assured him, crossing to sit beside them on the couch. "What are you watching?" "It's about the Mariana Trench," Ben explained, his eyes lighting up with genuine enthusiasm. "Did you know it's the deepest part of all the oceans? There are creatures down there that can make their own light because it's so dark." "Bioluminescence?" Lily chimed in, pronouncing the word with careful precision. "Ben knows a lot about ocean animals." "I have a book about them at home," Ben said. Then his face fell slightly. "At my apartment. I forgot to pack it." The simple statement, a reminder of all Ben had left behind, of the uncertain future that awaited him, made Kayla's throat tighten. "Maybe we could ask someone to get it for you," she suggested gently. Ben shook his head. "It's okay. Mom says we shouldn't ask for too many favors." He hesitated, then added in a smaller voice, "Will you come with me tomorrow? When I meet my grandma?" "Of course," Kayla said without hesitation. "If that's what you want." "I do," Ben confirmed. "You make me feel brave." The simple declaration, delivered with a child's unvarnished honesty, settled in Kayla's heart like a stone, a weight both painful and precious. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever decisions were made by those with the authority to determine Ben's future, she knew with absolute certainty that she would fight to remain a part of this remarkable child's life. The DCF office occupied 3 floors of a nondescript government building in downtown Boston. The reception area, with its institutional furniture and muted color scheme, seemed designed to project an atmosphere of bureaucratic competence rather than warmth. Ben sat stiffly between Kayla and Monica on a vinyl sofa, his blue backpack clutched protectively in his lap. "Your grandmother should be here soon," Monica assured him, checking her watch. Her hotel was just a few blocks away. Ben nodded, his face a careful mask of neutrality that broke Kayla's heart. No child should be so practiced at hiding his emotions, at presenting the face he thought adults wanted to see. "How are you feeling?" Kayla asked softly, resisting the impulse to smooth his hair or take his hand. She'd been careful all morning not to make physical contact, aware that any display of attachment might make the coming separation even more difficult. Ben shrugged one small shoulder. "Okay, I guess. It's been a long time since I saw Grandma. I don't really remember what she looks like now. It's natural to feel nervous," Kayla assured him. But from everything I've heard, your grandmother is very excited to see you. Before Ben could respond, the reception door opened, and an elegant older woman entered. Despite being in her mid-60s, Eleanor Winters carried herself with the straight-backed posture of someone accustomed to commanding respect. Her silver hair was styled in a neat bob, and her clothing, tailored slacks and a blue cashmere sweater, spoke of comfortable means without ostentation. Her eyes, the same deep brown as Ben's, scanned the waiting room with anxious intensity. "Grandma!" Ben's voice contained genuine surprise, as though until this moment, he hadn't quite believed she was real. Eleanor's face transformed with a smile that erased years from her appearance. "Benjamin," she breathed, crossing the room with quick steps. "Oh, my sweet boy. Look at you. So grown up." Ben stood, his backpack dropping to the floor as Eleanor knelt before him, her hands hovering uncertainly, clearly wanting to embrace him but hesitant to overwhelm. "You look the same," Ben said with wonder. "Except your hair is all silver now." Eleanor laughed softly, the sound edged with emotion. "Yes, well, that happens when you get older. You remember me?" Then, Ben nodded solemnly. "You have a cat named Mr. Whiskers, and you make cookies with pecans. And your house has a big porch swing where we used to read stories." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes. "That's right, sweetheart. Mr. Whiskers is getting old now, like me, but he's still around. And I still make those pecan cookies. And the porch swing is waiting for you." The naked hope in her voice, the longing of a grandmother who had clearly missed her grandson desperately, gave Kayla pause. This was not the cold, judgmental woman Diane had described, but someone who had suffered her own loss when the relationship with her daughter fractured. Monica stepped forward, extending her hand. "Mrs. Winters, I'm Monica Torres, Ben's caseworker. Thank you for coming so quickly." Eleanor rose, accepting the handshake with composure despite the emotion still evident in her eyes. "Of course, I would have come sooner if I'd known. All these years, I've sent cards, tried to call, even hired a private investigator at one point to find their new address after they moved. But Diane was determined to keep Ben away from me." Her gaze shifted to Kayla, questioning. "This is Kayla Lawson," Monica explained. "She's the nurse who found Ben at the hospital and has been providing emergency care for him over the weekend." "Ms. Lawson," Eleanor said, extending her hand with genuine warmth. "I can't thank you enough for looking after my grandson." When Ms. Torres called and explained what had happened, her voice faltered. "Well, I'm just grateful Ben had someone like you to help him." Kayla accepted the handshake, surprised by the sincerity in Eleanor's manner. "Ben is an extraordinary child," she said simply. "It's been a privilege to have him with us." Eleanor's eyes softened with understanding. "I'm sure it has, and I'm sure it's difficult to say goodbye." The perceptiveness of the observation caught Kayla off guard. Before she could respond, Monica gestured toward a hallway. "We have a conference room ready for us to talk. Ben, there's a playroom next door where you can wait while the adults discuss some things first. Then we'll bring you in to join the conversation." Ben looked up at Kayla, panic flashing briefly in his eyes. "Can't Kayla come with me?" Monica hesitated, clearly weighing the protocol against Ben's evident distress. "The initial discussion needs to be between DCF and family members. But Ms. Lawson can join us for part of the meeting if that would make you more comfortable." "Please," Ben said, his voice small. "I'll be right here," Kayla assured him. "I'm not leaving." With obvious reluctance, Ben allowed himself to be led to the adjacent playroom, glancing back several times as though afraid Kayla might disappear if he looked away too long. Once Ben was settled with a DCF staff member supervising, Monica led Kayla and Eleanor to a sterile conference room with a large table and uncomfortable-looking chairs. As they took their seats, Eleanor surprised Kayla by choosing to sit beside her rather than across the table. "Before we begin formally," Eleanor said, turning to Kayla, "I'd like to hear about Ben from you. Not the clinical details, Ms. Torres has briefed me on those, but about how he's been these past few days. What he likes, what comforts him, what frightens him. I want to make this transition as easy as possible for him." The request, so thoughtful and child-centered, further challenged Kayla's preconceptions. "He's remarkably self-sufficient," she began. "Almost too much so. He tries to take care of everyone around him, as though he's forgotten how to just be a child. He loves dinosaurs and ocean creatures. He's careful with his possessions. Everything has a place. He wakes up early and enjoys quiet time before everyone else is up." As Kayla continued sharing her observations of Ben, Eleanor listened with rapt attention, occasionally nodding or asking clarifying questions. There was nothing judgmental in her manner, only genuine concern for her grandson's well-being and a determination to understand what he needed. "He sounds so much like Diane at that age," Eleanor said softly when Kayla finished. "She was always the responsible one, the little adult. I worried about her taking on too much, but she was so determined to be independent." The comparison startled Kayla. Ben mentioned that his mother taught him how to do many things: cooking, managing money, even caring for her when she was unwell. Eleanor's expression clouded. "Diane was a wonderful mother when Ben was small. Devoted, careful, loving. I was so proud of her." She sighed deeply. "The drugs changed everything. After Dave, Ben's father, introduced her to those so-called friends of his, she became someone I didn't recognize. Defensive, secretive, angry. When I tried to intervene, to get her help, she accused me of trying to control her life, of never believing she could manage on her own." Monica, who had been quietly taking notes, interjected. "Mrs. Winters, could you tell us about your relationship with your daughter before the addiction issues began?" Eleanor considered the question carefully. "We were close, I thought. Not without typical mother-daughter tensions, but close. Diane was always headstrong, determined to forge her own path. When she met Dave Reynolds, I had concerns. He seemed charming but unreliable. But I tried to support her choices, to welcome him into our family." Her hands, elegant and well-manicured but showing the subtle signs of age, twisted together on the table. "After Ben was born, things were wonderful for a while. Dave seemed to step up, got a job in construction. They moved into a nice apartment. Diane was such a natural mother, patient, attentive. They would visit us in Florida several times a year." "What changed?" Kayla asked gently. "Dave injured his back at work," Eleanor said, pain evident in her voice. "The doctors prescribed painkillers. That was the beginning. He became dependent, then started buying pills on the street when his prescription ran out. Eventually, he moved on to heroin, cheaper, more accessible. And somehow, he convinced Diane to try it too." She closed her eyes briefly. "By the time I realized how bad things had gotten, Diane was already defending their lifestyle, making excuses, hiding the extent of their addiction." The story was tragically familiar to Kayla, the insidious progression from prescription medication to street drugs, the gradual erosion of a person's values and responsibilities as addiction took hold. But hearing it from Eleanor's perspective added dimensions she hadn't considered. The helplessness of watching a loved one descend into addiction, the desperate attempts to intervene, the painful choice between enabling and ultimatums. "When I finally confronted them," Eleanor continued, "after finding Ben, just 4 years old then, alone in their apartment while they were both passed out, Diane accused me of judging her, of never believing she could be a good mother. I gave her a choice, a residential treatment program I'd researched, with excellent outcomes, or I would seek custody of Ben. And she chose neither," Monica surmised. "She disappeared," Eleanor confirmed, her voice breaking slightly, "packed up and left in the middle of the night. I spent months trying to find them, hired investigators, contacted social services, even Dave's family. By the time I located an address, Dave had been arrested for dealing, and Diane had a restraining order prepared, claiming I was trying to kidnap Ben." The pain of the memory was evident in her face. "A judge denied my petition for visitation rights, said there wasn't sufficient evidence of neglect or endangerment to override parental authority." Kayla felt a swell of empathy for this woman who had tried to protect her grandson and been shut out of his life as punishment. The picture Diane had painted of a controlling, judgmental mother now seemed a convenient distortion, a narrative that allowed her to reject help while casting herself as the victim. Mrs. Winters, Monica said, her tone professionally gentle. I want to be clear about your intentions regarding Ben. Are you seeking temporary guardianship while your daughter recovers? Or is your goal permanent custody? Eleanor straightened in her chair, her expression resolute but not harsh. My only goal is Ben's well-being. I would prefer to work with Diane, to support her recovery and help rebuild her relationship with her son. But I need to be realistic. This isn't her first attempt at sobriety, and Ben can't continue to live in uncertainty. So yes, I'm seeking temporary guardianship with the understanding that it may become permanent if Diane cannot demonstrate sustained recovery. The honesty of the answer impressed Kayla. There was no vindictiveness in Eleanor's manner, no desire to punish her daughter or permanently separate her from Ben. Just a grandmother's determination to provide the stability her grandson desperately needed. And you understand that relocating Ben to Florida would significantly impact his ability to maintain regular contact with his mother? Monica pressed. I've given that considerable thought, Eleanor acknowledged. I'm prepared to relocate temporarily to Boston if that would be better for Ben's transition. I can rent an apartment, enroll him in school here, facilitate regular visits with Diane. My priority is minimizing additional trauma for Ben, not winning some victory over my daughter. The offer surprised both Kayla and Monica. It demonstrated a level of commitment and sacrifice that spoke volumes about Eleanor's priorities. That would certainly make the transition easier for Ben, Monica agreed, and potentially allow for family therapy sessions with both Ben and his mother, which would be beneficial. I'd like to meet with Diane as well, Eleanor added. If she's willing. It's been too long, and regardless of our past conflicts, we both love Ben. That has to be our common ground. As the conversation continued, exploring logistics and legal requirements for the guardianship arrangement, Kayla found herself increasingly convinced that Eleanor Winters was genuinely committed to Ben's best interests. Her willingness to uproot her life to provide stability for her grandson, her lack of bitterness toward Diane despite years of separation. These spoke of a character very different from the controlling monster Diane had described. I think it's time we included Ben in this conversation, Monica suggested after nearly an hour of discussion. He deserves to understand what's happening and have his questions answered. When Ben was brought into the conference room, his eyes immediately sought out Kayla, relaxing slightly when he found her still present. He approached the table cautiously, hesitating when he saw the empty chair between his grandmother and Monica. You can sit wherever you'd like, Ben, Monica assured him. Without a word, Ben moved to Kayla's side, climbing into the chair next to her. The choice was clear. In this room full of adults deciding his fate, Kayla represented safety and trust. Eleanor's expression flickered with disappointment, but she recovered quickly, offering Ben a warm smile. We've been talking about what happens next, Benjamin. About where you'll live while your mom gets better. Ben's fingers worked anxiously at the hem of his shirt. Am I going to Florida with you? Actually, Eleanor said gently, I've decided to stay in Boston for a while. I can rent an apartment here so you can still be near your mom, visit her regularly. Would you like that better than coming to Florida? Ben's eyes widened with surprise. You'd do that? Leave your house and Mr. Whiskers. Mr. Whiskers can come with me, Eleanor assured him. And yes, I do that, because what matters most is that you feel safe and happy while all these grown-up problems get sorted out. Ben considered this, his young face solemn with the weight of adult decisions. Would I have to change schools? That depends on where I find an apartment, Eleanor explained honestly. But if you need to change schools, I promise we'll find a good one, where you can make new friends and keep learning about all those dinosaurs and ocean creatures you love. Ben glanced at Kayla, a question in his eyes that broke her heart because she understood it perfectly. Will I still get to see you? Ben, Kayla said gently. Your grandmother and I were talking about how you might need some time to adjust to these changes. One thing we thought might help is if you could still visit me and Lily sometimes, maybe for dinner or to play games on weekends. Would you like that? The relief on Ben's face was answer enough, but he nodded vigorously. Yes, please. And I'd like to get to know Kayla and Lily better too, Eleanor added, surprising Kayla with her generosity. They've been very important to you during a difficult time. Those connections shouldn't just be cut off. Something in Ben's rigid posture eased. The fear of complete separation, of losing the fragile sense of security he'd found with Kayla, partially assuaged. So I'll live with Grandma, but I can still see Mom at the hospital and visit Kayla and Lily sometimes? He confirmed, carefully processing this arrangement. That's right, Monica said. And your grandmother will be making sure you have everything you need. A safe place to live, good food, clothes, books, all the things children should have. Ben absorbed this, then asked the question that clearly weighed most heavily on his mind. What about when Mom gets better? Will I go back to living with her? The adults exchanged glances, the complexity of this question evident in their hesitation. Your mom has a lot of hard work ahead of her, Eleanor said finally, choosing honesty over comfortable lies. She needs to get treatment for her illness, the one that makes her use drugs, and that takes time. She'll need to show that she can stay healthy and take care of herself before she can take care of you again. But it could happen? Ben pressed, his need for hope evident in his voice. If she gets better? It could happen, Eleanor confirmed, though Kayla could hear the careful qualification in her tone. And while she's working on getting better, we'll make sure you get to see her and talk to her regularly. She'll still be your mom, Benjamin. That doesn't change. The explanation seemed to satisfy Ben, at least for the moment. The rest of the meeting focused on practicalities, the temporary guardianship paperwork, the process for Eleanor to find an apartment, the arrangements for Ben's belongings to be packed and moved. Would it be possible, Eleanor asked toward the end, for Ben to stay with Ms. Lawson for a few more days while I secure suitable housing? It would give me time to find the right place, and Ben could continue with his current routine a bit longer. The request surprised Kayla, who had been steeling herself for an immediate goodbye. Monica considered the question, clearly weighing protocol against practical considerations. I don't see why not, as long as Ms. Lawson is agreeable, she said finally. It would allow for a more gradual transition, which would be in Ben's best interests. Of course, Kayla agreed immediately, relief flooding through her at the prospect of a few more days with Ben. We'd be happy to have him stay with us a little longer. Ben, who had been listening to these arrangements with the wary attention of a child accustomed to having decisions made for him, visibly relaxed at this news. Then it's settled, Monica concluded. Ben will remain with Ms. Lawson until Thursday, while Mrs. Winters secures an apartment. We'll reconvene then to finalize the transition plan. As the meeting concluded and the adults rose to leave, Eleanor approached Kayla with an unexpected request. Ms. Lawson, Kayla, would you be willing to join me for coffee tomorrow? Just the two of us. I think we have a lot to discuss regarding Ben's well-being. The invitation, offered with genuine warmth rather than obligation, caught Kayla off guard. I'd like that, she found herself saying. If you're sure. I'm very sure, Eleanor replied, her eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that spoke of her own complicated journey. I believe we both want what's best for my grandson, and that makes us natural allies, doesn't it? As they left the DCF office, Ben walked between Kayla and his grandmother, his small hand slipping into Kayla's with the natural trust of a child who had found safety in the midst of chaos. Eleanor noticed the gesture but made no comment, her own hand resting lightly on Ben's shoulder in a tentative reconnection. It was an unusual tableau, a grandmother reclaiming her role after years of forced absence, a nurse who had crossed professional boundaries to offer care beyond medicine, and a solemn-eyed boy who had been forced to grow up too quickly, now cautiously allowing himself to be guided by adults who put his needs first. None of them could predict how this fragile arrangement would evolve, what challenges lay ahead as Ben's mother confronted her addiction and legal troubles, or how the bonds forming between them would reshape all their lives. But for this moment, walking into the bright afternoon sunlight of a Boston autumn day, there was a tentative hope, a sense that perhaps, from the wreckage of addiction and neglect, something whole might yet be salvaged. She wants me to stay, Diane Reynolds said flatly, her gaze fixed on the hospital window where late afternoon shadows stretched across the parking lot below. My mother. She wants to take my son and keep him. Kayla, who had stopped by the hospital after dropping Ben off with Lily and Mrs. Abernathy, stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed. She hadn't planned to visit Diane again, but something had compelled her to come. Perhaps a sense of obligation to complete the circle, to update the mother on decisions made about her son. "She's agreed to stay in Boston," Kayla corrected gently. "So Ben can remain close to you, visit regularly. She seems genuinely committed to supporting your recovery, not replacing you." Diane's laugh held no humor. "That's what she wants everyone to think. Perfect Eleanor, the selfless grandmother. Meanwhile, she's positioning herself to take permanent custody. I know how she operates." The bitterness in her voice contrasted sharply with Eleanor's measured, compassionate approach at the DCF meeting. Kayla found herself wondering how much of Diane's resentment was based in reality, and how much was the defensive posturing of an addict unwilling to accept responsibility. "Ben needs stability right now," Kayla said, choosing her words carefully. "He's been through a traumatic experience, carrying burdens no child should have to bear. Your mother seems willing to provide that stability while you focus on your recovery. And you?" Diane's gaze shifted to Kayla, sharp with accusation. "What's your angle in all this? Why did you bring my son home with you? Why are you still involved?" The question struck at Kayla's own uncertainties, the boundaries she'd crossed without fully understanding her own motivations. "I was concerned for Ben's welfare," she said simply. "He was afraid of being placed with strangers, and I had the capacity to help. There was no angle." Diane studied her face, searching for deception or hidden agendas. "He likes you," she said finally. "He mentioned you in his note. Said you were nice to him, that your apartment was quiet." A shadow crossed her face. "I've never been able to give him quiet. Our life has always been chaotic." The admission held a painful self-awareness that surprised Kayla. "He loves you very much," she offered. "Everything he did, staying at the hospital, trying to take care of you, protecting your secrets, it was all because he didn't want to be separated from you." Tears welled in Diane's eyes. "I don't deserve him," she whispered. "I never have. He's always been this perfect, serious little old soul, and I've just dragged him down into my mess." She looked away, blinking rapidly. "Maybe my mother is right. Maybe he'd be better off without me." "That's not what Ben wants," Kayla said firmly. "And it's not what your mother wants either, from what I observed today. They both want you in Ben's life. A healthy, stable you." "Easy to say," Diane muttered. "Harder to achieve when you're facing criminal charges and have a decade-long addiction. The system isn't exactly set up for second chances." "No," Kayla acknowledged. "But it's not impossible. I've seen patients recover, rebuild relationships, create new lives." She hesitated, then added, "Ben is worth fighting for, isn't he?" Diane's gaze returned to Kayla, something hardening in her expression. "Are you suggesting I don't think he's worth fighting for? That I wouldn't do anything, everything, for my son?" "I think you love Ben deeply," Kayla said carefully. "But love isn't always enough. Sometimes it takes more. Commitment, sacrifice, the willingness to accept help even when it comes from sources you don't trust." "Like my mother," Diane said flatly. "Like your mother," Kayla confirmed. "Like social services. Like the treatment programs the court will likely mandate." She paused. "Like me. And why would you help?" Diane challenged. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." "I'm not doing it for you," Kayla admitted honestly. "I'm doing it for Ben. Because somehow, in the space of a weekend, that little boy became important to me. And his happiness is tied to yours, whether that makes sense to me or not." The honesty seemed to penetrate Diane's defenses. She stared at Kayla for a long moment, then said quietly, "He has that effect on people. Even as a baby, he could just connect, make you feel like you mattered." Her voice broke slightly. "I used to be so proud of that, this bright, empathetic little person I'd created. Before I started teaching him to hide his light, to keep secrets, to take care of me instead of the other way around." The self-awareness in her words gave Kayla hope, fragile, cautious hope that beneath the layers of addiction and defensiveness lay a mother who truly understood the damage she had caused and might, with the right support, find the strength to change. "It's not too late," Kayla said gently. "Ben still believes in you. He's still waiting for you to become the mother he knows you can be." Diane's face crumpled. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "I've tried before. I've promised him before. And I've failed over and over again." "Then try differently this time," Kayla suggested. "Accept help from your mother, from professionals, from wherever it's offered. Not for your sake, but for Ben's." For several moments, Diane was silent, tears tracking down her hollow cheeks. When she spoke again, her voice was small but held a thread of determination Kayla hadn't heard before. "Will you bring him to see me when the doctors say it's okay?" she asked. "I need to tell him I'm sorry. I need him to know this wasn't his fault." "Of course," Kayla agreed. "As soon as you're cleared for visitors, I'll bring him." "And," Diane hesitated, pride warring with need, "will you keep an eye on him, even after he goes to live with my mother? I know I have no right to ask, but he trusts you, and I need to know someone else is watching out for him. Someone who doesn't have decades of complicated history with me." The request caught Kayla by surprise, not the content, but the recognition behind it. Diane was acknowledging the bond that had formed between Kayla and her son, giving it her blessing rather than viewing it as a threat. "I will," Kayla promised. "For as long as Ben wants me in his life, I'll be there." Something relaxed in Diane's posture. A small surrender in the exhausting battle to handle everything alone. "Thank you," she said simply. As Kayla turned to leave, Diane added softly, "You know, when Ben was born, I promised myself I'd never be like my mother. Always judging, always expecting perfection. I was going to be the fun mom, the understanding one." A bitter smile twisted her lips. "Instead, I became something much worse. At least my mother's criticism came from a place of caring too much, not caring too little." The insight, painful, honest, hard one, hung in the air between them. Kayla had no comforting response, no easy reassurance to offer. The damage had been done. The question now was whether healing was possible, whether the broken pieces of this family could be reassembled into something whole. "It's not too late," she repeated softly, the only truth she could offer. "Ben is still here, still waiting, still hoping." As she left the hospital room, Kayla felt the weight of interconnected lives pressing on her shoulders. Ben's cautious hope, Eleanor's determined commitment, Diane's fragile resolve, and her own unexpected involvement in this broken family's story. The boundaries she had crossed could not be uncrossed. The connection she had formed with Ben could not be undone. Whatever came next, whether triumph or heartbreak or something in between, Kayla knew with absolute certainty that the moment she had approached a sleeping child in a hospital waiting room had altered the course of all their lives irrevocably. 3 months could change everything, Kayla reflected as she sat in her car outside the brick apartment building on Commonwealth Avenue. Winter had descended upon Boston in earnest. The January sky a flat gray, bare tree branches etched like dark veins against it, melting snow piled in grimy heaps along the sidewalk. She checked her watch, then glanced at the passenger seat where a carefully wrapped package sat, its blue paper adorned with cartoon dinosaurs. 8 years old today. The milestone seemed both ordinary and miraculous, considering the circumstances of Ben's life just a few months ago. As if summoned by her thoughts, the building's front door swung open, and Ben emerged, bundled in a new navy blue winter coat, a red scarf wound around his neck. His face lit up when he spotted her car, and he waved enthusiastically before turning to say something to the silver-haired woman behind him. Eleanor Winters nodded, smiling as she adjusted Ben's scarf and said something that made him laugh. A sound Kayla had heard more frequently as the weeks passed, as the shadows in his eyes gradually receded. With a final pat on his shoulder, Eleanor watched as Ben carefully navigated the salted steps and hurried toward Kayla's car. "Happy birthday," Kayla called as he climbed into the back seat. "Thanks," Ben replied, his cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. Grandma made chocolate chip pancakes for breakfast with 8 candles, one for each year. And she said we could order pizza for dinner and have whoever I want over. His voice held the wonder of a child still adjusting to having his preferences matter, his happiness prioritized. That sounds wonderful, Kayla said, waving to Eleanor, who remained on the steps watching them with a mixture of trust and protectiveness. Ready for our adventure? Ben nodded eagerly, buckling his seatbelt. Is Lily meeting us there? She'll join us after her basketball practice, Kayla confirmed, pulling away from the curb. Around 2 o'clock, so we have the whole morning, just the two of us. And then we're going to see Mom? He asked, the question carefully casual in a way that broke Kayla's heart. Even now, after months of gradual healing, Ben approached the subject of his mother with a caution born from years of disappointment. That's the plan, Kayla confirmed. Visiting hours start at 4. Ben nodded, satisfaction settling over his features. He had arranged this birthday schedule himself, with the casual meticulousness that remained both endearing and heartbreaking. A lingering reminder of the little adult he had been forced to become. Morning at the Museum of Science with Kayla. Afternoon with Lily joining them for the planetarium show. Late afternoon visiting his mother at New Horizons Recovery Center. Evening at home with Grandma and birthday pizza. A perfect day, carefully balanced between all the people who now formed his reconstructed world. Did you see my grades? He asked as they drove toward the museum. I got all A's except for AB+ in art. Ms. Wilson says I'm too precise, that I need to loosen up when I'm drawing. He mimicked his teacher's voice with surprising accuracy. Your grandmother showed me your report card last week, Kayla said. She's very proud of you. We all are. Even Mom. The question contained multitudes. Hope, doubt, the need for reassurance that hadn't diminished despite the weekly visits, despite Diane's progress in her recovery program. Especially your mom, Kayla assured him. She has your last spelling test taped up next to her bed. She shows it to everyone. Ben absorbed this information with the serious consideration he gave all updates about his mother. Do you think she's really getting better this time? It was a question he returned to periodically, never quite satisfied with the answers he received. Not because they weren't truthful, but because the truth was complicated, filled with the caveats and uncertainties that adults often try to shield children from. I think she's working harder than she ever has before, Kayla said carefully. 90 days sober is a significant achievement, and her counselors say she's fully engaged in the program. Ben nodded, processing this diplomatic response. Grandma says addiction is a chronic illness, he said, the clinical terminology incongruous from his young mouth. That means it doesn't just go away forever. It means Mom will always have to work at staying healthy. That's right, Kayla agreed, impressed as always by Ben's capacity to absorb and integrate difficult concepts. But people can and do recover. They learn to manage their illness and live healthy lives. Like people with diabetes, Ben supplied. They need insulin and special diets, but they can be okay if they take care of themselves. Exactly like that, Kayla confirmed, recognizing Eleanor's influence in the practical, destigmatizing analogy. In the months since taking guardianship of Ben, Eleanor had devoted herself to educating both of them about addiction as a medical condition rather than a moral failing. A perspective that was helping Ben understand his mother's struggles without shouldering inappropriate blame or responsibility. They lapsed into comfortable silence as Kayla navigated the Boston traffic. From the rearview mirror, she could see Ben gazing out the window, his expression thoughtful in a way that still seemed too mature for his years. 3 months had brought significant changes to his life. A new home with his grandmother, a new school where he was already excelling, regular therapy sessions that were helping him process his experiences. But some things couldn't be quickly undone. The hypervigilance, the tendency to anticipate others' needs before his own, the careful observation of adult moods and reactions. Small victories, Kayla reminded herself. Today, his 8th birthday, Ben was excited rather than anxious. He had plans he was looking forward to, adults he trusted to keep their promises. For a child who had spent years in survival mode, these ordinary pleasures represented tremendous progress. I have something for you, Kayla said as they approached the museum parking lot. A pre-museum birthday present. Ben's eyes widened. Really? But you're already taking me to the museum. And you got tickets for the planetarium show. This is something extra, Kayla said, reaching for the package on the passenger seat. Something I thought you might like to have today. As she parked the car, Ben accepted the gift with characteristic care, meticulously unwrapping the paper along its seams rather than tearing it open. Inside was a digital camera, not a professional model but a sturdy one designed for young photographers with simple controls and a durable case. It's a camera, Kayla explained, though Ben was already examining it with intense focus. I noticed how much you enjoy taking pictures with my phone when we go places. I thought you might like to have your own. Ben turned the camera over in his hands, his expression a mixture of awe and uncertainty. It's for me? To keep. All yours, Kayla confirmed. I already charged the battery and put in a memory card. And look, she reached over and pressed a button, revealing a photo already loaded on the display screen. Ben and Lily building a snowman in the park the previous weekend, their faces flushed with cold and laughter. This is the best present ever, Ben breathed, staring at the image. Thank you, Kayla. He looked up, his eyes serious. I'll be really careful with it. I promise. I know you will, she said. But it's okay if it gets a little scratched or bumped. That's what happens when we use things we love. The important part is capturing memories that make you happy. Ben considered this perspective so contrary to his careful preservation of possessions. So I should just enjoy it? Without worrying. Exactly, Kayla said, recognizing another small opportunity for healing. The best way to thank someone for a gift is to use it with joy. Ben nodded solemnly, accepting this lesson. I'm going to take pictures of everything today. The dinosaur exhibit and the lightning show, and Lily at the planetarium, and Mom at New Horizons, and the birthday pizza with Grandma. That sounds perfect, Kayla said, warmth spreading through her chest at his enthusiasm. A complete record of your 8th birthday. As they entered the museum, Ben already experimenting with the camera's zoom function on the massive T-Rex skeleton in the lobby, Kayla marveled at how seamlessly he had incorporated her into his carefully structured world. Their Sunday outings had become a fixed ritual, as had the Tuesday evening dinners when Ben and Eleanor joined Kayla and Lily for tacos or pasta or whatever Lily had decided to help prepare that week. Co-parenting with Eleanor, for that was essentially what it had become, though never explicitly defined as such, had evolved with surprising ease. The older woman had recognized from the beginning that Ben's attachment to Kayla represented safety and stability during the most traumatic period of his young life. Rather than viewing this connection as competition, Eleanor had welcomed it, incorporated it into Ben's routine, even sought Kayla's insights when Ben's behavior puzzled her. He respects you, Eleanor had observed during one of their regular coffee meetings. And more importantly, he trusts you. That's not something I'm willing to disrupt, regardless of traditional family boundaries. The arrangement was unconventional, certainly. A grandmother with legal guardianship, a mother working through recovery and legal issues, and a nurse who had crossed professional boundaries to form a lasting connection with a child in crisis. Yet somehow, against all odds, it was working. Ben was thriving in a way that seemed miraculous given where he'd been just a few months earlier. The planetarium show had been spectacular, a journey through the cosmos narrated by a renowned astrophysicist, with stunning visuals that had left both children wide-eyed with wonder. Now, as they approached the New Horizons Recovery Center, Ben's excitement was tempered with the familiar tension that always preceded visits with his mother. "Do you think she'll like my pictures?" he asked, scrolling through the dozens of images he'd captured throughout the day. Close-ups of fossils, Lily making silly faces beside a whale skeleton, Kayla explaining an exhibit on electricity. "She'll love them," Lily assured him from the back seat, where the two children sat together, heads bent over the camera's display screen. At 10.5, Lily had appointed herself Ben's honorary big sister, a role she approached with surprising maturity, especially the ones from the planetarium. "You got really good shots of that nebula thing." Ben nodded, but his attention had shifted to the low brick building coming into view. New Horizons occupied a former convent, its grounds peaceful, its architecture dignified rather than institutional. It housed one of Boston's most respected recovery programs, combining medical treatment with therapeutic support and practical life skills training. Diane's placement there had been something of a miracle, the result of Eleanor's persistent advocacy, a sympathetic judge, and Diane's genuine desire to change. Instead of prison time for her prescription fraud charges, she had been granted a deferred sentence contingent on successful completion of the 6-month residential program, followed by 2 years of supervised probation and ongoing outpatient treatment. 3 months in, her progress reports were cautiously optimistic. As Kayla parked the car, Ben suddenly asked, "What if Mom forgets it's my birthday?" The question revealed the lingering insecurity beneath his excitement, the residual trauma of a childhood marked by a parent's unreliability. "She won't forget," Kayla assured him. "She mentioned it during our phone call yesterday, remember? She was very excited about today." Ben nodded, but the worry remained in his eyes. Lily, perceptive as always, reached over and gave his hand a quick squeeze. "And even if she did forget, which she won't," she added pragmatically, "you've already had an awesome birthday with us and you've still got pizza with your grandma tonight." The simple reminder of his expanded support system seemed to reassure Ben. "You're right," he agreed. "And anyway, I can show her the pictures even if she doesn't remember why I took them." Kayla and Lily exchanged glances over Ben's head, both recognizing the emotional hedge he was constructing, the way he was preparing himself for potential disappointment while trying to maintain optimism. It was a sophisticated coping mechanism for an 8-year-old, heartbreaking in its necessity yet admirable in its resilience. The center's reception area was bright and welcoming, decorated with resident artwork and comfortable furniture. The receptionist, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, greeted Ben by name. "There he is, the birthday boy. Your mom is waiting for you in the garden room." She handed him a visitor's badge, which he clipped to his jacket with practiced ease. "She's been watching the clock all afternoon." Relief softened Ben's features at this confirmation that his mother had remembered, had been anticipating his visit. "Can Kayla and Lily come too?" he asked. "Of course," the receptionist confirmed. "They're on the approved visitor list." As they followed the familiar hallway to the garden room, a bright solarium overlooking the center's winter-dormant gardens, Ben's pace quickened with anticipation. He pushed open the door to reveal a cozy space with wicker furniture and potted plants. Diane Reynolds stood as they entered, her face breaking into a genuine smile that transformed her features. 3 months of proper nutrition, medical care, and freedom from substances had worked a visible change. Her complexion clearer, her body no longer painfully thin, her movements more fluid and purposeful. "There's my birthday boy," she said, opening her arms. Ben hesitated only a fraction of a second before rushing forward into his mother's embrace. It was a moment of pure connection, the complicated reality of their past temporarily suspended in the simple joy of a mother holding her child. "I've been waiting all day to see you," Diane said, pressing a kiss to the top of Ben's head. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." "I went to the Museum of Science," Ben told her, words tumbling out in excitement. "And the planetarium. And Kayla got me a camera, a real one just for me. Look, I took pictures of everything." Diane welcomed Kayla and Lily with a genuine warmth that had developed over months of shared visits, the initial awkwardness giving way to a mutual commitment to Ben's well-being that transcended the unusual circumstances of their connection. "Thank you for making his day special," she said to Kayla, the simple acknowledgement free from the defensiveness or resentment that had marked their early interactions. "It was my pleasure," Kayla replied honestly. "He's been looking forward to this all week." As Ben settled beside his mother on the wicker sofa, eagerly showing her the photos from his day, Lily discreetly pulled a book from her backpack and settled in a nearby chair, giving mother and son some space while remaining present. The arrangement had become their standard practice during these visits, Kayla and Lily providing supportive background presence while allowing Ben and Diane to reconnect. Watching them together, Kayla was struck by the genuine progress in their relationship. In the early weeks after Diane's admission to New Horizons, the visits had been strained, Ben anxious and watchful, Diane alternating between tearful remorse and defensive justification. But gradually, with the support of family therapy sessions and Diane's growing commitment to recovery, something healthier had begun to emerge. Diane was learning to be a mother rather than a friend or dependent to her son. Ben was learning that he could express his feelings, even the angry, hurt ones, without his mother falling apart or abandoning him. It was painful, messy work, but the results were becoming visible in small but significant ways. The natural way Ben now leaned against his mother's side as they looked at photos together, the appropriate questions Diane asked about his school and friends, the absence of promises neither could keep. "Look, this is the Triceratops skeleton," Ben was saying, showing her another photo. "Did you know they had up to 800 teeth during their lifetime? They kept replacing them as they wore down." "I didn't know that," Diane said, her interest genuine rather than performative. "That's amazing. No wonder they were such successful herbivores." Ben beamed at her knowledge of his favorite dinosaur's diet, a small but meaningful indication that she had been paying attention to his interests, retaining information from previous conversations. "I have something for you too," Diane said after they had gone through more photos. She reached into a canvas tote bag beside her chair and withdrew a package wrapped in simple blue paper, clearly wrapped by hand with careful but imperfect creases. Ben accepted it with visible surprise. In previous years, his birthdays had often passed with grand promises but few actual gifts, or presents hastily purchased at the last minute that reflected little understanding of his interests. "Go ahead, open it," Diane encouraged. With characteristic care, Ben unwrapped the package to reveal a handmade scrapbook, its cover decorated with carefully drawn planets and stars that echoed the design on his school notebook. "I made it in art therapy," Diane explained as Ben opened the book with wonder. "It's all about you, your life so far, and all the amazing things you love." Inside were meticulously collected memories, photos Diane had requested from Eleanor, drawings Ben had made during previous visits, carefully labeled constellations and dinosaur facts written in Diane's neat handwriting. Each page represented hours of thought and effort, a tangible representation of her commitment to knowing and celebrating her son. "This is the best present ever," Ben whispered, echoing his words from earlier that day, though with a different quality of emotion. His fingers traced a photo of himself as a toddler, sitting on his mother's lap with a picture book. "I remember this. You used to do the voices for all the characters." "I did," Diane confirmed, her own eyes bright with emotion. "You loved that silly bear voice I would do." As Ben continued turning pages, each sparking memories and conversation, Kayla observed the interaction with a full heart. This gift represented more than a mother's creativity. It demonstrated Diane's growing capacity to see her son clearly, to acknowledge their shared past while working toward a healthier future. When they reached the book's end, several pages remained empty except for headings, age 8, age 9, age 10, and beyond, a hopeful statement about continued connection, about being present for the milestones to come. "We'll fill these together," Diane promised, her voice steady with conviction rather than fragile with desperate promises. "One day at a time, just like they teach us here." Ben nodded, understanding the reference to recovery language he'd absorbed through family therapy sessions. "One day at a time," he repeated, leaning against his mother's side with a trust that had been painfully rebuilt over months of consistent effort. The rest of the visit passed in comfortable conversation, Ben sharing stories from school, Diane offering appropriate maternal interest and guidance, Lily occasionally joining in with her own observations or questions. To any outside observer, they might have appeared to be simply a family enjoying a birthday visit. The complex history of trauma, addiction, and separation not immediately visible in their warm interaction. As their time drew to a close, Diane walked them to the center's entrance, kneeling to give Ben a final birthday hug. "I am so proud of the person you're becoming," she told him, framing his face between her hands. "You are strong and kind and brilliant, and I love you more than anything in this world." "I love you too, Mom," Ben replied, the words simple but profound in their honesty. "And I'm working hard," Diane continued, her voice dropping to a more intimate volume though not quite a whisper. "Every day, I'm working to be the mother you deserve. I can't promise I'll never make mistakes, but I can promise I'll never stop trying. Okay? Ben nodded, accepting this realistic pledge in place of the grandiose promises of the past. Okay. As they prepared to leave, Diane pulled Kayla aside for a brief, private moment. Thank you, she said simply, for everything you've done for him, for not giving up on either of us. He's worth it, Kayla replied. You both are. Diane's smile held a complicated mixture of gratitude and regret. I used to be so jealous of how he looks at you, she admitted. I resented that someone else could provide what I couldn't. But now I'm just grateful. He deserves to have as many people loving him as possible. The acknowledgement, honest, mature, free from manipulation, represented perhaps the most significant evidence of Diane's growth. This was not the desperate woman who had awakened in the hospital 3 months ago, alternating between self-pity and defensiveness. This was a mother gradually finding her way toward a healthier relationship with her son, even if that meant sharing his affection and trust with others. One day at a time, Kayla reminded her gently. One day at a time, Diane agreed. The pizza party at Eleanor's apartment was in full swing when Kayla arrived to pick up Lily. Ben had invited 2 friends from his new school, a development that Eleanor had privately celebrated as a significant milestone in his social adjustment. And the living room echoed with the sound of children's laughter as they played an elaborate board game on the coffee table. Eleanor welcomed Kayla with a warm hug. Come in, come in. There's plenty of pizza left, and we haven't done cake yet. Ben insisted on waiting for you. The apartment Eleanor had found was modest but comfortable. A 2-bedroom unit in a well-maintained building, furnished with a blend of pieces brought from Florida and new items chosen with Ben's input. His room was painted a deep blue with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, bookshelves filled with his favorite volumes, and a desk positioned near the window where he could watch the street below. It was a home created with careful attention to a child's needs for both security and self-expression, so different from the chaotic apartment where Ben had attempted to care for his unconscious mother just 3 months earlier. How was the visit with Diane? Eleanor asked quietly as they watched the children playing. Good, Kayla replied honestly. Really good. She made him a scrapbook, hand-drawn cover, photos, memories. It was thoughtful, age-appropriate. He loved it. Eleanor nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. She called me last week to ask for photos from when he was younger. I was impressed she planned so far ahead. There was no sarcasm in her tone, only genuine acknowledgement of her daughter's progress. The therapist says she's doing some of the hardest emotional work they've seen, really confronting her triggers, her patterns. The relationship between mother and daughter remained complicated. Decades of conflict and disappointment couldn't be erased overnight, but a fragile truce had formed around their shared love for Ben. Eleanor attended family therapy sessions with Diane when requested, maintained civil communication about Ben's needs and activities, and refrained from expressing doubts about Diane's recovery in Ben's presence. It was imperfect, often awkward, but fundamentally necessary for Ben's sense of security. He needed to believe the adults in his life could cooperate, could put his needs above their past grievances. Kayla, Ben called, spotting her from the living room. You're just in time for cake. The birthday cake, Eleanor explained as she brought it from the kitchen, had been Ben's own design. Chocolate with blue frosting and plastic dinosaurs arranged in a prehistoric scene. 8 candles stood among the tiny figurines, waiting to be lit. As everyone gathered around the table singing Happy Birthday, Kayla watched Ben's face, illuminated by candlelight, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for him. A properly celebrated 8-year-old, rather than a miniature adult bearing impossible burdens. When he closed his eyes to make his wish, his expression held a contentment that would have seemed impossible 3 months ago in that hospital waiting room. Later, after his friends had gone home and Lily was helping Eleanor clean up wrapping paper, Ben found Kayla on the small balcony where she had stepped out for a moment of quiet reflection. Thank you for my camera, he said, joining her at the railing. I took 63 pictures today. I'm going to make copies and give some to Mom for her room at New Horizons, and keep some in my scrapbook, and maybe frame one for Grandma. That sounds like a perfect plan, Kayla said, struck by his thoughtful distribution of the day's memories. Ben was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the early evening darkness. This was my best birthday ever, he said finally. Not because of the presents or the museum or even the cake, but because everyone showed up. Everyone remembered. Everyone was okay. The simple observation contained volumes. A child's fundamental need for reliability, for celebrations unmarred by adult drama or disappointment, for the simple security of being surrounded by people who kept their promises. I'm glad, Kayla said, her throat tight with emotion. You deserve that, Ben. Not just on your birthday, but every day. He considered this, his profile solemn in the fading light. Do you think it will stay this way? With Mom getting better and Grandma being here and you and Lily still being my friends? It was a question loaded with the anxiety of a child who had learned early and painfully that good things could vanish without warning, that adult stability couldn't be taken for granted. I can't promise everything will always be perfect, Kayla said honestly. People make mistakes. Life gets complicated sometimes. But I can promise you this. As long as I'm around, you will never be alone with your problems again. You will always have people who care about you, who will help you figure things out. Ben absorbed this, weighing her words with his characteristic seriousness. Okay, he said finally. I believe you. The simple declaration of trust, hard-won, precious, not given lightly, settled between them like a covenant. This remarkable child, who had endured more in his 8 years than many adults face in a lifetime, was cautiously allowing himself to believe in the possibility of a stable future, a life where adults kept their promises and his needs mattered. Inside the apartment, Lily called Ben's name, announcing it was time for one last game before she and Kayla had to leave. Ben turned from the balcony, but paused in the doorway, his small face suddenly illuminated by the warm light from within. Kayla, he said, his voice quiet but steady. I took a picture today that's just for you. I'll send it from Grandma's computer tonight. Before she could respond, he had disappeared inside, drawn back into the circle of birthday celebration and ordinary childhood pleasures that were gradually becoming his new normal. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Kayla checked her email to find Ben's promised picture. It was a selfie taken at the planetarium, capturing Ben, Lily, and Kayla together. Ben in the middle, his solemn face relaxed in genuine happiness. Lily pulling a silly face on one side, Kayla smiling warmly on the other. Above them, projected on the planetarium dome, swirled the colorful gases of a nebula. A cosmic nursery where new stars were being born from the dust and chaos of the universe. In a brief caption below the image, Ben had written only, "My family constellation." Kayla sat for a long time looking at the photo, at the simple but profound truth captured through a child's lens. Family not defined by blood or legal documents, but by presence, by showing up, by refusing to look away when things got difficult. 3 months ago, she had crossed a professional boundary to help a child in crisis, never imagining how completely that decision would reshape her own life. Now, looking at this image of their unlikely constellation, Kayla felt a bone-deep certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, Diane's ongoing recovery journey, Eleanor's adjustment to her new role, the complex legal and emotional terrain they all continued to navigate, they would face them together, guided by their shared commitment to the remarkable child who had brought them into each other's orbits. Outside her apartment window, stars glimmered in the cold January sky, distant light traveling across vast darkness, forming patterns that helped generations of humans navigate their way home. Ben was finding his way too, charting a new course with the help of the adults who had finally, belatedly, aligned their efforts to protect rather than burden him. It wasn't a perfect arrangement. It wasn't what any of them would have chosen or predicted. But in its imperfect, hard-won way, it was working. One day at a time, they were creating something that, if not traditionally familial, was profoundly connected, bound together by love for a child who deserved nothing less than their best efforts, their continued presence, their unwavering commitment to his future. Like the nebula in Ben's photograph, something new was forming from what had once been chaos. Not without struggle, not without lingering traces of past pain, but with infinite possibility, with the steady light of hope guiding them forward.